All right, looks like we do have a quorum now. So welcome to the Public Safety Finance and Strategic Support Committee on October 21st. If we can get a roll call, please.
Arenas?
Here.
Jones? Mayhem?
Here.
Jimenez?
Present.
Perales?
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. And we have the review of our work plan, any items to be added, dropped, or deferred. And I do have one recommendation myself for the orders for today. I just wanted to, and actually, I don't know, this is, I know, just to review the work plan. I'll ask the city attorney, is this the right time to make a shift in regards to the order of our items today?
Yes, you may do so.
Okay, I'm just going to ask that we hear item 2 first, and then 3, and then we'll hear item number 1, the Personal Care Compliance Initiative, after those 2. And no other listed items to be dropped or deferred. Anything from my colleagues? And if not, I'll ask for a motion.
So moved.
Moved. Second.
A motion and a second, and we do have some public speakers, so we'll go over to our public for comment. And as a reminder, again, we're speaking on the review of the work plan right now, and you will have 2 minutes to speak.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. I wanted to speak on the consent calendar. Do I wait or should I go now?
Just wait a sec, Blair. We'll call that up next.
Thank you.
All right, and next up is Tessa.
Thank you. I guess I don't have a clock. Is there a clock that you're going to put up? No clock.
No, it looks like no clock. I'll time you.
All right. Thank you. Oh, there's my timer. Okay, thank you, Tony. All right, good, sweetie. All right, good. So I guess I was just commenting on our work plan because this is the concept of safety, and that is a concern of mine. And yet, I know it deals with the police and the fire, and those are traditional safety issues. but the safety that we're building into our community is something that we really need to look at in our work plan, so that we don't need the police or the fire department because we've just got run over by a car. And so that's what I'm talking about, is the safety of our streets, making our streets safe. And we're not putting enough time and resources and money into making that so. And so that is my concern, is that we need to prevent, prevention needs to be part of our policies. And so when we come up with a problem in our community, in terms of the safety of our pedestrians and our safety of our bicyclists, that needs to be really looked at and addressed, instead of saying, yes, we know about that problem. It's in our list. It's in our work plans. When I talked to, John Brazil from the, our bicycle group, and, it's in the work plan. And even when I was talking to Andrew Boone, he was saying a lot of really good policies are in our work plans, but not implementing them. And it's the same thing with our climate crisis. We have it in the plans that we're going to reduce, but we're not acting. And so that's where I'm having trouble with our city, in terms of, if I'm reporting something, how it gets to be urgent, and it gets done, instead of saying, we have to, have a bake sale to raise the money to improve our streets, or we've got to wait till we repave our streets, that, and then yet the urgency of fixing a pothole is, when we call 311, it says 2 hours, the response time, or something like that, maybe 2 days, but even that's not bad. But yet, when there's problems where there isn't bike lanes and it's unsafe to ride, nothing.
Thank you, Tessa. And we have caller with digits ending in 5140. And just as a reminder, it's not what it states up above. This is actually on our work plan.
Right. This is the safety work plan that Tessa was talking about. And for the city of San Jose to lecture anybody on safety, or to even implement anything, we need to find an alternative, because you guys are a fictional government. Response times are poor for both police and fire, totally awful. In my life, in my neighborhood, I've seen 2 buildings burned to the ground. I mean, burned badly, I should say, not to the ground. One of them resulted in 2 deaths. And you've got, missing street signs that have been, were repaired after the fire. That street was missing a street sign for decades, since the 80s. The roads are bad. They're really bad. It seems as if they repave them, but they don't refinish the outer rim of the manhole cover. That's not safe. It's not safe for a car. It's even worse for a bicycle. And we spend billions of dollars on all these things, and it's not safe. I mean, near the Rose Garden, there used to be one of the street lamps had a lot of exposed wiring. I had to call 50 times, emails, talking with a bunch of people. Finally, a policeman called me after I called up, and they sent out an electrician to fix it. But I couldn't be there because they didn't want any confrontation. Can you imagine this? It got to that, okay? So for you guys to lecture us about safety, shame on you. You guys are the ones measuring flagpoles that are 1 inch too high. That's what you people have time for. You have time to see what a fence looks like, if it's the right material, and if it's 1 inch too high. You make people take it. You're going to lecture people on safety? You people should be ashamed of yourself. Police and fire, this is Reno 911, I can tell you. This is Reno 911 meets the fire department.
Okay, thank you. And that will conclude our public comment. So we have a motion and a second. If we can get a roll call vote, please.
Arenas? Councilmember Arenas? Jones?
Aye.
Mayhem?
Aye.
Jimenez?
Aye.
Peralez?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. That'll take us down to our consent calendar, where we do have one item, and we'll go to members of the public first. And I see Blair Beekman.
Hi, thank you. Blair Beekman here. Thanks for this item. It is chock full of a lot of interesting, good stuff. And so thank you for it. I guess a place to start is my big one that, I'm noticing this fall, I think we're having a bit of trouble how to consider ideas of planning and how to be planning for the next few years, how to be planning for the next 5 years. The year 2023 has been noted as it's an important year that can really help kind of define the future of our decade. I think it has economic issues that we're interested in, how we'll be working from 2023 and beyond. And there's also, the natural disaster worries that I've been bringing up for the Bay Area that is of note. Good luck how we can plan at this time and how it can be an open conversation with each other and open communication. I think that's an important thing we work on, and it takes a skill to learn how to do it. And there's a subtlety sometimes. Sometimes it's okay to be open and upfront about it and state clearly. And it's a balance to do that. Good luck how we can do that. I'm trying to learn how to do that as well. With 48 seconds, a thank you to the city auditor, who I think has been doing an incredible job. We're all talking better about the ideas of reimagine and equity at this time in San Jose. The auditor's office is doing a very good job with these things. Good luck how we can continue these practices. It's these ideals that community health and safety that is what can really prepare us for the next few years, I feel. And San Jose has taken a really intelligent, smart way to go about this. Thank you immensely. There are clean energy items that if we practice our good local procurement of renewable energy ideas now, this can prepare us and take us out of any possible natural disasters sooner in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Blair. Next up will be Tessa Woodmansey.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you, Blair, for helping us follow the agenda. It takes a village. And, the issues of preparedness are really important. And when Blair talks about, how we need to stay focused on the real potential likelihood of an earthquake is really, really critical. And, we don't like to think about that, with our what we don't see. Humans just respond to the threats that they can see in front that has a face. But these are threats that we don't necessarily see, but we have to really work with our, to use our brains to really understand the threats that are there. And that's what, separates us as a species, that we have forethought and we can do these things. And this forethought that, when he talks about 2023, we're here, the former chief scientist of the UK government is saying we have to move quickly. What we do, I believe, in the next 3 to 4 years will determine the future of humanity. And so that's 3 years he's talking. And it was like, I didn't even realize, I thought it was 4 to 5. And then I read it again, it was 3 years. And that's what my husband is saying as a biologist too, is that the threats that are coming, that are likely to be coming to San Jose are so immense, and we're not planning for them. The immense change that could happen right now in our environment, the floods, the fires, and the heat waves, the drought, and then of course the earthquakes and our pandemic on top of everything else, and so it's hard, and we have to start planning for these things and making the changes to build resiliency into our community. And that needs to be our focus, is really preparing us to be self-sufficient. Really, it's really getting us to work towards our self-sufficiency, because the governments aren't necessarily doing it. So we have to be prepared.
Thank you. And our last vote speaker will be caller with the last 4 digits ending in 5140.
Yeah, I mean, I'd hate to see if anything really major happened, because this city can't handle minor things. Remember the floods? That was real good job there, Sam, and emergency response. Real good job there. Real good job. Look, here in California, you've got floods, fires, mudslides, droughts, earthquakes, not necessarily in that order. And this area is known for it. People like to talk a lot about Native American things. Native American people were clearly clearly knew what was going on with these kind of things. That's why they moved around a lot. And they knew not to build in flood zones. They told the Europeans not to, and they still did it anyway and were flooded. These guys knew what to do. We don't know what to do. Yeah, the Native American people should actually address the city council, tell them how they used to do it. Control burns, making sure that the waterways were clear. Keep in mind, they had no heavy machinery or anything, but I mean, if you're going to rely on San Jose PD and the San Jose Fire Department, good luck, because these guys are ill prepared for anything. They can't put out fires. The police can't solve crimes. I mean, what's a cop going to do who makes $500,000 a year? Because they do. He's going to show up and save the day. No, he's going to go run to Tahoe and get on his jet ski. That's what he's going to do if there was anything wrong here. Right? These guys don't do anything. They know how to write citations. They're good at that, right? And they're good at showing up to the kindergarten class and telling them how, how good they are. You know, they're the good guys. Or, maybe handing out a backpack. They're good at that, okay? But you guys need to get a plan together, because I can't imagine if something really bad happens. It'll be a catastrophe. You guys are not prepared. The county fire department's not prepared. The county sheriff's department's not prepared. I'd like to see what they're doing to be prepared.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll go back to the committee members. And just as a note, I was pretty lenient on those first few items, but I will ask for further comment from the public to stick to the agenda item of topic, and I'll remind you of that before it comes up. Otherwise, you will be cut short if you're not sticking to the topic. So first from the committee, we have Councilor Mayhem.
Thanks, Chair Perales. Appreciate it. I'll move the report in just a moment. I did just want to ask staff, if anyone is on the call, wanted to ask about the private sector construction activity, which I understand we'd had kind of a high watermark, I believe, but it seems like it declined significantly. And I believe it was about 75% across the three categories. And I just wanted to know if we had a little more interpretation, or I hesitate to use the word forecast, but what our interpretation of that data is at this point.
Hi, council member. This is Jim Shannon, city's budget director. So thank you for the question. Yeah, so last year was a very weird year in that we had a huge portion come in at the first couple of months. So last year, I think we had about almost 50% of our total valuation came in July and August. And so I think that's the biggest reason why you see those huge percentage change there. Now, we want to definitely keep an eye on it, right? That's been the sort of the thought all along is really how is the private development activity going to evolve here as we kind of come out of the pandemic. So something we're looking on. I think it's too early to make any conclusions here because last year was just so weird.
Understood. Okay, sounds good. And this is a bi-monthly financial report, correct?
Correct.
So we'll have some more data in a couple of months. Okay, great. Thanks. That sounds good to me. That was the main thing that stuck out to me. So I will move acceptance of the report.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. If we can get a roll call vote, please.
Arenas,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Mahan,
Aye.
Jimenez,
Yes.
Perales.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and as noted earlier, we're going to skip down to item D2 first. So this is the Fire Department Emergency Response Time to Performance Annual Report. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you. We're going to take one moment just to put the slides up, and then we'll get going. Okay, good afternoon. My name is Brad Kluche, captain with the San Jose Fire Department. I'm joined here this afternoon by Fire Chief Robert Sapien and Deputy Chief of Field Operations John Healy. We'll walk through a few slides regarding fire department response. There we go. So on this first slide, the city established fire department emergency response time performance standard is arrival on scene within 8 minutes, 80% of the time. The city emergency response time performance standard includes 3 distinct segments, including the alarm processing time, turnout time, and travel time. In fiscal year 2021, the department's monthly performance average was arrival within 8 minutes, 72.55% of the time, which is 7.45% below the 80% standard. And on the screen, you can see that the three components highlighted that construe the response time. The fire department also provides advanced life support first responder services under an agreement between the City of San Jose and the Santa Clara County Emergency Medical Services Agency. This agreement provides for first responder funding contingent upon meeting certain performance requirements, including scene arrival within 7 minutes and 59 seconds for calls requiring code 3, which is lights and sirens response. Under this standard, the time starts when a resource is dispatched and stops upon arrival at the dispatch location. Specifically, the turnout time and travel time segments together must be 7 minutes and 59 seconds or under that to meet the standard. The fire department has met the county's 90% standard for the last 39 months. And this graph shows the response time performance for July 2019 through July 2020. So this is the month-to-month performance for both the city 8-minute, 80% of the time standard, which is in red, and the county 8-minute, 90% of the time standard, which is in green for the fiscal year 2019 through 2020. This slide is for month-to-month performance for both the city 8-minute, 80% of the time response standard, which is in red, and the county 8-minute, 90% of the time, which is in green. And the fire department response time performance is sensitive to private ambulance system performance. In January 2021, at the peak of COVID-19 infections in Santa Clara County, the fire department experienced its highest call volumes and resources remained on scene of EMS responses for extended periods, awaiting ambulances to arrive for patient transport. The result was an increase in instances where the fire department resources were unavailable for subsequent calls in their first due response areas. Kind of want to draw your attention on the upper line in green. You'll notice in January, the number is 88.95. There's some adjustment that we can make to those. And so the final adjusted performance was reconciled to a little over 90% for January of that month. And that helped us get to the 39 consecutive months. So here is an overlay of Santa Clara County's COVID-19 positive patient hospitalizations over the same time period. And it reflects the relationship between ambulance availability and the fire department response time. And you can see here the department was engaged in county EMS to discuss response network underperformance caused by delayed ambulance arrivals. The final adjusted performance for this period, like I mentioned on the last slide, was 90.53%. This graph shows performance for alarm processing, turnout time, and travel time response time segments from July 2019 to June 2021. The blue line indicates monthly call volume. Generally, response time performance is sensitive to call volume. However, as previously mentioned, fire department response time performance was at its lowest in January of 2021 during the peak of the COVID-19 infections due to high call volumes and unavailable ambulance resources. So this heat map, the department monitors travel time challenges, so greater than 4 minutes. High call volume areas shown at the core of the city experience the most extended travel time responses. As shown in the previous slide, travel time segments is the primary driver of response time underperformance. The additions of resources at the newly constructed fire stations 20, 32, 36, and 37 are expected to result in improved travel time performance. However, conditions are ever changing. Response time performance can be influenced by multiple factors. In fiscal year 2021, the department experienced its highest recorded call volume at 94,784 incidents. development, including high-density housing infill, traffic patterns, economic conditions, call volume, and recently public health conditions all impact emergency response resource availability and performance. And this is just an example of some of the intelligence that we're using. So we continue to utilize business intelligence dashboards like this one to monitor day-to-day performance and to make decisions on deployment levels and field activities. And the department also continues to advance strategies towards optimizing response performance. Key strategies on the horizon include those listed: resourcing, technology, and analytics. And any questions?
Okay, thank you. We'll go over to members of our public first. And we have up first will be Tessa Woodmansee. And just as a reminder, this is on item D2, the Fire Department Emergency Response Times Performance Annual Report.
Can you please release your presentation? Thank you.
Thank you, Raul Perales, for your education about the topic. Yes, I am aware of it. And, you know, start thinking about the response times, and that, I don't know what that sound is in the back, if anybody's got their microphone on, I don't know. Oh, you're so good. Thank you. Very good. Is that, you know, this has always been an issue. It's like when we're thinking about traffic calming and how we want to have, let's say, you know, some type of traffic calming in our streets, where we could slow the traffic with some type of whatever they call those things to slow the traffic. They always say, well, the fire department won't put up with that, and it will slow, you know, response times. And so we really have these, you know, wild streets that, you know, the speed is so uncontrollable, you know, and we have to engineer it in, and yet, you know, speed bumps is what I'm talking about. And so basically, you know, I think, like, you know, my neighborhood, where Stockton Avenue, we need to have really truck routes where the fire trucks would go, which would be on Coleman, in an example here. And so that we could have the speed bumps on Stockton Avenue to slow the traffic, and where they would know the route would be to take Coleman if they wanted to go north and south. And, you know, we can have that on these industrial roads, and then the same thing applies for when I've been trying to get what we call home zones, where, you know, it would be no through street, or in our case, you know, where there's industrial at the end of Shealy Avenue, you'd put balustrades, some protection, and it would be, you know, you either come from the Alameda or Stockton, depending on, it wouldn't be a through street. And that, yes, it would slow the fire trucks, but they would know. I'm saying that they could know what is the routes. I'm sure there's technology that tells us the way to go. And, you know, and so that if you know, that's the way we can solve the problems without it being like, no.
Thank you. And now caller with the last 4 digits ending in 5140.
Yeah, I'd hope you guys would be able to improve those response times. It seems as if there's many fire departments, but it takes forever for the department to show up. I mean, remember the flames on Hillsdale, across the street from the fire department? It burned down in flames. Now an auto parts store next to the gas station. Yeah, that makes me feel real safe with this department. I had a fire in my neighborhood. Took forever for you guys to show up. I'm the one who called it in. I waited around. I had to leave to go to work, and I never heard any sirens. I mean, it took you guys forever to show up. But a woman died there. A woman I knew as a child. And her granddaughter passed away in that fire. And the whole thing was suspicious anyway. But regardless, it took forever for you guys to show up. And I was a kid, same neighborhood. Place went up in flames, guys' garage went up. It took forever. People to get on top of their rooftops and hose down their rooftops because you guys took forever to show up. Granted, that was a long time ago, but you don't have a very good history of response times. Matter of fact, are you guys still under federal observation or auditing or something because you guys were so horrible at your response time? I want this guy who's speaking today in the fire department. I want you to answer my questions and tell me what you've done in the last 2 or 3 years to rectify this problem. Because I mean, what's going to happen if something major happens, like a flood or whatever, or a major fire? Are you guys prepared to do it, or have backup departments in maybe Santa Clara or the county to help you guys out? Because it doesn't seem like you have the personnel or the speed to get things done. Bottom line is, you never want to be in any kind of problem with the city of San Jose, because they're there to tax you, they're there to regulate you, but they're never there when you really need them. And I'd like to hear the people from San Jose Fire Department.
Okay, thank you. And our last speaker will be Blair Beacon.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Thank you for this item. An apology that, for my words in the previous consent calendar. I know they can be a bit strong, but hopefully they're words that can be thought out and to give yourselves direction in how to consider our lives in the next few years as a community, as Tessa said very nicely. So I just thought I'd say hi to the fire person who's offering on this item, and to acknowledge I feel they are planning well for the next few years. And it's how that planning can then translate to community and everyday persons, and we can all have a sense of what to expect in the next few years, that practices community safety and community health and our better selves. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Blair. We'll go back to members of the committee, and first up will be Councilmember Mayhem.
Thanks, Chair. And I really just want to start by thanking you all for the clarity of the performance report. I feel I've mentioned this to the chief before, but I think the focused presentation of how we measure success, how we're performing, and then what we're doing to improve performance feels like a really great way of summarizing how we're doing and what we're doing to do better. And so I just, as some of our work on the Smart Cities Committee, it's something I'm hoping we can use this as a template for describing the performance of other city services, because I think you guys do a great job of just distilling it down and making it really easy to understand. I was hoping to hear a little bit more on that last piece of the strategies. Which of those you think are highest potential, and how much impact you think we're likely to get from any of those? So are you able to add a little more context around that last slide on on the strategies you're implementing?
Thank you, Council Member. This is Robert Sapien, Fire Chief. Yeah, I can give you a general description of what these initiatives are intending to achieve. Happy to report that this is quite a short list compared to what we started on a few years back, prior to when we were actually meeting that county 90% response time. And so going forward, what we're looking for in order of what you see on the slide there is in the area of resourcing. We continue to work on a daily basis on deployment refinements, a little more focus on real-time move-ups where areas are vacated, more assertive in terms of getting resources backfilled into those areas. We also, through council budget action, have a process and a funding source to provide additional resources where we take units out of service for mandated training. And so where in the past we would have just run short and negatively impacted our response times, we still are today able to provide overtime hours. Our next report, you'll hear a little bit more about that and some concerns in that area, but for the most part, that particular resourcing item is an ongoing process and has been effective for us. In terms of new deployments, Council Member, you are aware that Measure T was passed in November of 2018, and we're well underway in some of those construction projects. And so engines 37, 32, and 36 are funded directly by Measure T, and they will result in the deployment of engines 37, 32, and 36. We have done some analysis on the impact. Each of those stations will positively impact our performance as things stand today. We even suspect that engine 32, which will be located near Story and McLaughlin, may end up being either our busiest or one of our busiest engine companies once it's put into service. And so we know that's going to have a positive impact on response times in the aggregate. With regards
Great.
to—
And Chief, I don't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to know, and I think you just hit on one, which of these you think are going to most move the needle? So it doesn't have to be all of them, but just, I appreciate the walkthrough, but which ones are the biggest bang for our buck, and how much impact do you think we're likely to get on in terms of the actual metric that we're looking at?
So largest impact by way of maybe several percentage points gain would be that one, that additional resource deployment. In terms of more modest gains, I look forward to the two items combined, which would be border drops and CAD-to-CAD dispatch links. The idea there is that we are going to work more closely with our neighboring partners, and where it makes sense, we would cover some of their jurisdictions automatically, and they might cover some of ours. And so that would just sort of smooth the borders, and we wouldn't have artificial lines dividing our equipment relative to where they're positioned. Closest unit dispatch, I think, is another one. Other agencies have seen a fair amount of bump in performance. And what closest unit dispatch does is it'll go from our current status where we have defined response areas for each of our stations, and companies located at those stations respond to those areas, whereas closest unit dispatch will essentially disregard station areas and will actually send the closest unit as indicated by auto vehicle location technology. I think from a standpoint of our ability to manage and make decisions, I think business intelligence continues to be a positive for us as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Chief. I appreciate it. Again, I really appreciate the focus and clarity, and that you guys are continuing to innovate with limited resources to try to hit the targets. So appreciate that, and appreciate all the great work. I'll go ahead and move acceptance of the report.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Thank you. And that's it for you, Councilmember?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Next up will be Councilmember Arenas.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chief, for your report. I've got to say that in my district, we have one of the lowest number of late responses, and so it tells me, and I have a huge, I have a large district, and so it tells me that when the resources are there, when they're, the city center obviously is more populated or denser, is denser and has a higher need, as the graphs have showed us. But in districts like mine, it is it's one of the lowest response in terms of late responses, lowest number of late responses. And I want, thank you for that. We have a large senior community at the villages, and then we have quite a number, I think 3, 4 senior living facilities just all on San Felipe, all on one corridor. And so I live right next to the villages, and so I get to hear those calls all the time. And so I want to thank you because I know that when you have what you need and the system isn't getting overwhelmed, that we do well, right? So first, I wanted just to make sure I always see the silver lining in what we're faced with. I had a question about the study. I'm sorry, Chair, that's not my background noise?
No, it's come in a couple of times. I don't know where it's coming from, so I apologize. I don't know if maybe our if it's from somebody from the clerk's office, but we're getting some background odd noise every now and then. It's gone now, but we'll try to see if we can't get it to stop. So
Sure. I just thought, oh no, is this a drill? Sounded like the beginning of a drill. I was wondering about the study that is in process for the staffing study, and when you expect it for that to be completed.
Thank you, council member. So we had we were able to get a review with the city manager's office, and we had some very good questions come back to us. And so we're working with the consultant to get answers to those questions. I hope it's within a matter of 1 month or 2 for the fire communications staffing study to be completed.
Oh, so it's right around the corner. That's great to hear. The other piece is, and I know that you have this on as part of the key strategies, and I think you have it as closest unit dispatch, which you just highlighted is something that would be key in moving us forward to having a shorter response time. And the CAD to CAD dispatch, I had a question about the pending agency readiness. Is there something that the county is waiting for? Are they sorting out their CAD system?
Right, you're hitting the nail on the head there. County is implementing a new CAD system. In fact, they were working on opening an entirely new communications center. They are key to our integration across the county because of some of the dispatching work that they do. And so their system availability for integration is kind of the first in the queue. And so we're just waiting on them to be completed. And my understanding is they're way past the purchasing phase and they're getting close to implementation.
Oh, that's great to hear that they're close to the implementation of this. Lastly, I wanted to know, I heard it loud and clear that our engines are stuck at a call if ambulance delays their arrival. So it sounds like we can't leave we can't leave unless the ambulance gets there. And so, and of course, that makes sense to me. The question I had was, how is the ambulance system improving their responses, or how do you know how we're working with them? Obviously they're private, and so they have different objectives, but I'm sure that being on time is equal to a higher compensation.
Yes, thank you for the question. I'm a little reluctant because it'd be a little speculative in terms of what exactly they are doing. Our role has been to report what we're experiencing in the field. And I don't know if I've ever had a chance to really explain this, but we're under 2 separate contract systems. So they have a direct contract with county EMS, and they have their own performance requirements. And then we as first responder agency have a separate contract and our own response requirements. And all I really have the ability to do is to report what we're experiencing. I don't really have an ability to influence how they go about resourcing or deploying on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. Right. No, I understand that completely. I'm just wondering if in your conversations with the county about all of this system and the things that both systems are doing to improve response rate, if it's ever been mentioned to the county that I know you're smiling at me. All right, I'm gonna put on bump myself. You don't even have to answer that, Chief Sapien. If there's anything that we can do to support you in getting closer, please let us know. I'm sure that you're doing everything you can within your role and your authority. So thank you for your service, and thank you for keeping us all safe and hopefully healthy as much as we could be during this last fiscal year. Thank you.
Thank you, council member.
Okay, thank you. That's all the hands raised. If you can go to slide 8, the heat map again. Yeah, thank you. So, and I'll save most of the comments here for the next discussion, but over half of my district is that hot red in the middle there, which is serviced by Station 1, 30, 3, 8. And we know that's also the core of downtown, where we are building more, densifying, high rise, and there's going to be a huge need in the future for, I think, intensifying service there. And again, it's already the area where we know, right, we have some issues, right, and just I think it's important that we take a look at that, and we have a plan of action really for the whole city, but we have a plan of action on how we're going to staff up. But I'll save that for the next presentation. Just wanted to go in, if you can go to the slide on, I think it was the response time, slide 6 or 5, either one. And just wanted to see, Chief, obviously we had many years where we were below the county EMS Code 3 compliance of 90%. And we've now been able to maintain pretty consistently above it. And as you indicated here on slide 6, this 88.95 that was below was adjusted up. And I'm just kind of curious if you can pinpoint some of the best actions that we've taken that have led to us being so consistent now and not seeing a drop. And I know you have the key strategies in place on that last slide, but we've had some other factors at play over the years. Just wanted to see if you can give a kind of a snapshot in regards to why we're seeing so much success. That's now been more consistent for this committee, but obviously when I joined the committee, it was nothing but below 90, and that was very concerning.
Right. Thank you, Chair. As I sit here recalling our history there, you were involved in much of the progress that we've made. I think first and foremost, we saw the biggest bump when we started to restore some of the post-recession budget cuts, right? So Station 35, we had lost Engine 35, and that was restored temporarily under SAFER, but later restored in the budget as well. And then we made an exchange of some squads that had been deployed to be able to recover Engine 30 on Oz Array, which reinforced some of our downtown highest call volume performance area. And then in that same budget year, Engine 34 was restored. And the combination of those three resources had, I think, the biggest impact. I would not diminish a more recent advancement, which is in cooperation with the Department of Transportation and the Police Department, the implementation of emergency vehicle preemption, which activated over 900 intersections across the city to allow for green lights whenever we're traveling en route with red lights and sirens, has created a steady impact or positive impact on response time performance over time. Certainly some of the policies, like I mentioned before, the backfill for training has helped quite a bit. And we've made quite a bit of advancement in just human performance. And so the turnout time number has dropped significantly and now performs well above the 80% standard every month. So I think many of those things combined, along with, I think, just a concerted awareness and improvement in data for us to understand what's happening, has all led to us making better decisions.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. And obviously it's been great to see the numbers achieving over that 90%, as we were talking about previously. It wasn't just about meeting the county standard there, it was about trying to get to these calls and ensuring we had the ability to get to the calls in a timely manner about saving lives. So with that, I think we're through with comment. And did we get a motion? I apologize. Yes,
We did.
We did.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we can do a roll call vote, please.
Arenas,
Yes.
Jones,
Aye.
Mayhem,
Aye.
Jimenez,
Aye.
Peralez.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Takes us on now to item D3. And as a reminder, after this, we'll hear D1. But D3 is now our fire department sworn staffing levels annual report. So Chief, still with you.
Sorry, give me just one moment for our technology here. All right, I believe we're up and running. Thank you. This is Robert Sapien, Fire Chief. I'm joined today by Deputy Fire Chief John Healy and Captain Brad Cloutier, and we are here to provide the first annual Fire Department Sworn Staffing Levels report. With that, I will begin. The San Jose Fire Department provides all hazard emergency response spanning 208 square miles within city limits and an additional 27 miles of unincorporated areas under agreement with the County of Santa Clara. San Jose Fire Department also participates in in-county automatic and mutual aid and in the statewide mutual aid system. In fiscal year 2021, the department responded to 94,784 incidents. The FY 2021-2022 operating budget authorizes 719 positions, 14 of which will become effective in January to provide for the opening of Fire Engine 37. The department deploys resources from 5 battalions through 33 fire stations. Response resources include 33 fire engine companies, 9 truck companies, 3 rescue medics, 1 urban search and rescue, and 1 aircraft rescue firefighter company. We also deploy a single paramedic field coordinator required under the EMS contract with the county. The department maintains minimum daily staffing levels of 186 personnel. There are 9 distinct ranks within the sworn staffing corps, with the greatest numbers of positions in the ranks of fire captain, fire engineer, and firefighter. Sworn personnel in the ranks of battalion chief, fire captain, arson investigator, fire prevention inspector, fire engineer, and firefighter are represented by San Jose Firefighters IAFF Local 230. The fire chief, assistant fire chief, and deputy fire chief positions are represented under Unit 99. The memorandum of agreement between the City of San Jose and IAFF Local 230 specifies minimum staffing levels for certain deployed resources. Battalion chiefs are a single-person resource. Engine and truck companies are 4-person resources. Rescue medics, formerly known as squads, are 2-person resources. And the aircraft rescue firefighting resource is 6 personnel because there are 3 separate apparatus as part of that resource configuration. These minimum staffing requirements, together with the department's resource deployment levels, result in that 186 personnel on duty per day figure. The department deploys additional response resources through cross-staffing. These include 2 breathing air support units, a hazardous incident team, and 2 Type 3 fire engines. When cross-staffed, resources are deployed. The primary resource is taken out of service. For example, when the hazardous incident team or HIT 29 responds, Truck 29 is unavailable to respond. There are also 2-piece resources which enable us to provide wildland equipment. When responding, 2-piece companies divide 4-person crews to staff 2 vehicles. These include Type 1, Type 6 engine configurations, Type 6 engines are what we used to call brush patrols. They're smaller four-wheel drive fire engines. And also type 1 water tender combinations. Water tenders, just like it sounds, carry large volumes of water for us to have on the scene of wildland incidents. Additional unstaffed equipment includes a command van, trailered resources, including sanitary units, USAR or urban search and rescue tool caches, and other various reserve equipment. Overall sworn vacancy rates have ranged from 2.8% to 5.9%, or numerically 20 personnel to 42 personnel. In fiscal year 2016-17, 26 sworn positions were added with the restorations of fire engines 30 and 34, increasing our staffing levels from 679 to 705. Currently, 679 sworn personnel are assigned to fill the 558 total line positions. So that 558 is simply that 186 per day staffing number times 3. And then we have additional personnel as part of the relief personnel corps. Personnel who do not hold permanent bid assignments are assigned as relief within a battalion to fill absences and vacancies that occur on their assigned shift. One senior manager is assigned as the duty chief at all times. 31 sworn personnel fill administrative positions, including fire prevention inspectors, staff officers holding fire captain and battalion chief ranks, and the senior chief officers. The department conducts 1 and 2 firefighter recruit academies annually to keep pace with attrition. Academies are 20 weeks, depending on holiday overlaps, and typically begin with 25 firefighter recruits. Absences and vacancies are backfilled by either relief personnel or on an overtime basis. In fiscal year 2021, 459,903 overtime hours were required, and overtime expenditures were just under $21 million. Field hours include minimum staffing, augmented staffing levels, and backfill for resources engaged in training. Fiscal year 2021 absence hours increased by approximately 17%, largely attributable to COVID-19. It is important to recognize increasing workload levels for all department personnel. Increased mutual aid deployments driven by unprecedented fire activity, COVID-19 related staffing pressures, highest ever annual call volume, and ever increasing training requirements combined to highest workload levels yet experienced by the department. 459,903 overtime hours is an approximate equivalent to 19,162 24-hour shifts and almost 28 extra 24-hour shifts per sworn employee. It is further recognized that some employees bear the highest burden for overtime backfill based on their particular qualifications. I will add that the approximate equivalent of full-time positions for those overtime hours of 459,903 is 157.93 full-time positions. As previously noted, in FY 2020-2021, absence hours increased by approximately 17%. This increase is reflected most clearly in the top left chart, which is the combined absence and backfill hours for all 3 ranks. Absence hours include sick leave, vacation leave, disability leave, modified duty leave, and administrative leave. This year, administrative leave is notable because of its relation to COVID-19 absences. The firefighter rank will normally have the greatest variability in terms of vacancies as the entry rank for new sworn personnel. This slide reflects staffing per population amongst local fire agencies. Because of the complexity of how areas are covered, I have excluded CAL FIRE's coverage areas of Morgan Hill, South Clara County, and the CAL FIRE unit itself. Sunnyvale Department of Public Safety provides both fire protection and law enforcement services with a total of 201 personnel, or 1.30 sworn personnel per 1,000 residents. However, they provide both law enforcement and fire protection services. Their normal personnel number assigned to fire protection is 81 at this time. In that Sunnyvale system, fire ground staffing is augmented by on-duty patrol officers. I'll also note that the overall average or the remaining population for all of those areas, or the total population, is 792,306 and 736 sworn personnel across those agencies, with a 0.92 staffing to population ratio amongst all other county agencies, excluding CAL FIRE. Amongst Santa Clara County fire agencies, engine companies are more commonly staffed with 3 personnel, and truck company staffing is more commonly 3 or 4. Amongst U.S. cities with populations of 800,000 or greater, San Jose and San Diego rank lowest at 0.69 firefighters per 1,000 residents. The average across the 17 most populous cities is 1.33 firefighters per 1,000. The most common engine company staffing level is 4 across U.S. cities. Ideal span of control for high-risk operations is 3 to 7. Currently, battalion chief span of control is 8 to 10, or an average of 8.6. Measure T has enabled construction of 3 new fire stations. The resulting addition of engines 32, 36, and 37 will increase average battalion chief span of control to 9.2 to 1. The department is evaluating the addition of a 6th battalion to improve span of control and decrease travel distances for command support. The Arson Unit is staffed by a captain and 3 arson investigator positions. Arson investigators work a 24-hour shift, which are A, B, and C, and the supervising arson captain works a 40-hour administrative schedule to provide continuous support. Absences and vacancies are not backfilled except under unusual circumstances. Agencies across the state have reported experiencing difficulties in recruiting licensed paramedics. The department is experiencing this as well as we work to recruit to keep pace with attrition and growth. And we are considering various strategies to address this issue by, for example, activating non-practicing licensed paramedics within the department to increase the number of support medics, accelerating hiring of licensed paramedics, revising paramedic training or revisiting investment in paramedic training for existing employees, and exploring recruitment and development opportunities through partnership programs such as the Fire Explorer. And this completes our report for the day, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Chief. And we'll go over to members of the public first. And as a reminder, this is item D3, the Fire Department Sworn Staffing Levels Annual Report. And first up will be Tessa Woodmansey.
Thank you. Thank you, Raul Perales, for having such a good class of our democracy. You're doing a great job of helping us follow along. So, you know, I guess I definitely wanted to thank the fire departments for their response in our community. We had like 3 fires in my neighborhood, and you guys did a really great job of coming. Just really want to thank you for that, and very fabulous response time, and it was just great, you know, so thank you. The only thing that I experienced when I was dealing with the fires in our neighborhood was that, and the police do not wear masks. And, I know that there's been a lot of, controversy over, whether or not they're going to get vaccinated and things like that. And, I'm not going to push for that. I'm okay if they don't want to be vaccinated. But, the thing is that they should be wearing masks and staying 6 feet apart and encouraging that, and so, that's just a comment, to really, we're having trouble enforcing these things. But I think that, especially when we're seeing, you're saying so many absentees from COVID and things like that. I think that's just a simple thing that we can all do, and we need to be required to do that. And so that's just that comment about the fire departments and, the staffing. And it was, that was it. It was interesting to see all of your equipment and what a wonderful amount of equipment you have to keep us safe. And that's basically it. I would really like to really say that in terms of our response times, that we do create safe streets as a prevention for so much of the need for our fire. When cars are going so fast and running and creating accidents, that we really need to put in our traffic calming and have that be a priority.
Thank you. All right, our next speaker will be Blair Beekman.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. I hope my initial public comments at consent time can be of some help and relevance to items such as this, and with the ideas of equity and reimagine we're trying to work towards. And I think with the ideas of policing, I think we're about at our limit of what I think we're at the numbers we need to be at. I think community health and human services ideas can kind of take over at this point, hopefully, is my thinking. With fire issues here, I don't know exactly where that is. And so you tried to explain some things today. Good luck how we can all better understand the need of fire in our future, fire department people in our future. A quick thought that the ideas of CBRN technology, which is kind of like bomb detection equipment and chemical detection equipment, nuclear bomb detection equipment, that's kind of gone under their own revolution in the past few years, where it's now being put upon individual cities that they're being given their own tech to work these things out. It's kind of a relief to fire and police, but I think there's a sensibility about the sharing of this sort of tech between different cities that actually it's a more community-oriented process. And I hope we don't forget that, and that we want to still practice those kind of ideas and ideals. I think it's a sharing of technology that can help create the ideas of unity we look for. Yeah, I guess that's about all. Thank you.
Thank you, Blair. Okay, our last speaker will be caller with the last 4 digits, 5140.
I really have a hard time listening to how they don't have enough staff and all this quote overtime. This in the police department. You guys use this city as an ATM to be able to buy extra things for yourselves with all these crazy overtime hours. I don't believe any of it. You guys manipulate the schedules exactly how you want them to work for you, to get it in, to be able to have overtime and go on these long vacations like you guys do. And then I hear, oh, we don't have anybody who, we don't have enough staff, and we're not able to hire enough people because there's not enough paramedics. There's not enough people who want to try out, for this winning team. Well, the police department did the same thing. Harder to get onto this SJPD than to get into Harvard. Are you guys doing the same thing where it's just like this private little club, with your pool hall in the basement of the firehouse, sitting around talking about who's going to be able to get hired, who's not, how to make it, just so you'll have enough people to be able to still do the overtime manipulation and everything else? I don't believe you. And I would like the chief to actually explain to me why there's that much overtime. And yeah, you can read off of the slide, but I mean, come on. I'd like to have a real face-to-face conversation about this and the police chief about this overtime and staffing issues. I don't believe that at all. People are lined up to become police and firemen. Maybe not in San Jose. Is it that bad to work in this city? I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not the kind of people want to work with. Maybe that's why people are quitting all the time. I don't know. But what I'd like to know is that the response times need to be better than 8 minutes, given the amount of fire houses we have everywhere and these new high-tech places. You guys need to have.
Okay, thank you. We'll bring it back to members of the committee. I don't see any hands at the moment, so I will start. And thank you, Chief, for putting this together. I think it's very telling when we can see, in comparison to other cities around us, but also other large cities throughout the country. We know this, unfortunately, is our reality, that we are one of the most understaffed big cities in the country, and that goes for every single department, obviously. And when it comes to public safety, the impacts are what we were talking about this last time on obviously response times and being able to save life and property. And when you look at the comparison and just seeing kind of the averages and being the absolute lowest tied with San Diego is not obviously I think the place where we want to be. And to me speaks to that other slide, obviously the heat map on the response times, and really when you look at where we're going to be building and densifying, I'm nervous about what that means for us moving forward in the future. And I think we need to be planning for that. And this is not necessarily just on you. Obviously, this is on our city manager and on the council to ensure that we are doing so. We're planning for that growth and development, and that we're planning the city services to be tied along with it, or the growth of the city services, I should say, to be tied along with it. So a couple specific areas of concern, and just wanted to see your feedback. I know we've had ongoing issues from time to time of hiring and retaining paramedics, and I wanted to see, and you put that in there obviously in your slides as well, on the focus of paramedics evaluating, and you can go to that, actually the slide right before this if you don't mind, just while I'm talking about it. Thanks. So evaluating the increased number of support paramedics, evaluating accelerated hiring of licensed paramedics, revisiting paramedic training, exploring recruitment and development opportunities. Can you dive into that a little deeper on what that looks like, and how long are we talking? Are we talking about a plan that's 6 months, a year, 5 years, and what does that actually look like in regards to recruiting and retaining paramedics?
Thank you, Chair. Great question. These are short, medium, and long-term strategies that you see. The shortest term is sort of looking at our own workforce. We do have what we call non-practicing paramedics who were formerly frontline medics in the department who promoted out of the position. However, they're still trained and licensed. And so to be able to mobilize that strategy, one, we have to pull the department to understand the interest in folks coming back to that role. Two, we would probably have a pretty brief time to get them some of their certifications, their continuing education catch up, like pre-hospital or PHTLS class, which is pre-hospital trauma support, ACLS, advanced life support training, that kind of thing, which are basically continuing education courses that we would have to catch them up on. So I think that's achievable within months, 3 or 4 maybe, and some are actually non-practicing in our city but work elsewhere, so some can be brought online fairly quickly as well. So that's a short-term strategy. Accelerated hiring is a medium-term strategy. Some departments already right now in the state of California are doing lateral recruitments. I have mixed feelings about lateral recruitments because we're basically, as a fire service, taking we may benefit from it, but the department we take from will have to figure it out on their own. I know we're still kind of an employer of choice when it comes to fire departments in the state of California. There's a lot of interest in people coming here. So I think we could find some success in that strategy. That could take 6 months to a year, I think, to get into place and mobilize. Paramedic training, we've actually done this before in the department. It is a hefty investment where you take firefighters and send them to paramedic school. I can tell you just anecdotally, my personal experiences, we got some fantastic paramedics out of this process because they were very experienced EMTs before they went to paramedic school. But it is a very hefty investment because you are compensating them while they're in school, paying for the training, and then you're compensating folks to backfill their positions as well. So I think there's value in that, but I think we would have to evaluate whether the investment is the best way to go, given all options. And then lastly, we're more than exploring. We're actually setting up opportunities for partnership with the Explorer program. For example, we have students that are being sponsored to go to EMT school. These are young people who have aged out of the Explorer program, but are still interested in careers in the fire service. And so it's local youth who we're helping to support. And we're also working closely with local education agencies to try to get opportunities for direct recruitment, other opportunities to share in training costs to try to get more people trained and ready for our positions. And so that kind of strategy is an ongoing multi-year strategy to get that kind of recruitment energy going.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I appreciate where your head is at on that. I think with this one, I'll ask when we come back next year for the annual report that we just get an update on those strategies, some that you said short-term, 3 to 6 months, some 6 to a year, and would like to see how that's going. I'll have a couple more areas of interest and then maybe some requests to come back, but I will hand it over to my colleagues and then I'll come back. So next will be Councilmember Arenas.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question. You know what? I was gonna start from the beginning of my questions, but I'll pick up where Councilmember Perales left off and continue with this conversation about exploring these or offering options to our youth to enter into this firefighting paramedic field. And I wondered how we can intersect some of the programs that are already established, and that way you don't duplicate efforts. There's San Jose Aspires that is already providing some funding for through the library department, providing some funding for college. Now, I think this is a very viable career, and this could be included in that option. I think there's an opportunity there to hopefully recruit some kiddos from high school and get them really early, as well as the Resiliency Corps. One of the areas that I'm very concerned about is how our youth are going to be prepared for the future of San Jose. And the future of San Jose is going in a very high-tech manner, and we'll leave out some of the children who have a wide education gap. And so in order for us to bring those kiddos forward or close the gap and provide them with some options, I think our city has to do a better job of already looking at what exists out in our community. And I'm not saying that, I'm saying this in general, not about the fire department, Chief Sapien. In general, I think we need to connect our dots a lot better within our own organization so that we can maximize what we're doing. Now, I don't know if you've already thought about connecting with some of the existing youth programs in the city.
Thank you, council member. I think like you, I agree there's a lot of opportunity there. I would have to be honest and say the idea is one, the execution is the other, and we're very challenged from a resourcing standpoint in terms of recruitment and development of that kind of program. For all of the recruitment that has to happen in the fire department, I have basically 2 full-time equivalent positions doing that for every position that exists. And they have multiple other duties on top of it. So they're not exclusively doing recruiting. So I think that kind of program development would be fantastic. I think it probably has some equivalencies across multiple industries, not just the fire service. And I think higher level coordination is probably the solution to it. But I strongly agree with you that there's opportunities for synergy amongst programs.
Well, thank you for agreeing with me, Chief. I do want to ask Lee if maybe he can help facilitate this conversation with what Angel Rios is doing under the city manager's office. He and I have been working on a youth master plan that will integrate youth programming more comprehensively. One of the opportunities that we have right now is through the Resiliency Corps that already is providing money to have these kids do a number of things, one of which is tutoring. The second is helping with pick up debris at our trails. Also helping with the logistics at some of the vaccine sites. And while I think all of these things are really good options, I see a better option for our youth instead of maybe picking up debris from our trails is connecting them back to jobs that could be waiting for them after they finish their school. So Lee, how can we better coordinate this so that all of these things, all of these loose ends get tied up with our youth master plan?
Yeah, Councilmember Arenas, I think that's an excellent point, and quite frankly, a strategy that could be complementary to the 2 problems we're having with filling vacancies and staffing up as well. So, I will bring the chief and Angel together. I know that it's very important to Angel and you that we're not just looking at jobs and services and resiliency core today, but like what is the gap in youth services all the way up? And a lot of these people should come and work for the city of San Jose. So I don't know the how yet, but I certainly think as we start to finish the youth master plan and really jump in there, that could be an expected outcome that we provide a little bit more focus and prioritization for.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We are experiencing a worker shortage that has been exacerbated by this pandemic because people can't afford to live in this area. But we knew some time ago that this economy was going to face a shortage because of the lower birth rates and the retirement of baby boomers. And yet we haven't really proactively prepared our kids who are in our own backyard for technology jobs. And I'm afraid that outside talent will flood our city. And the youth that has been struggling here in San Jose will be geared towards service-oriented industry options. And so this is, beyond, I think, the fire department, obviously, but everybody loves the fire department, and lots of kiddos hope to become one as they grow. And I want to make sure that they can take some steps to making that reality, that dream a reality, because it is hard. It is hard to become a firefighter. There's a lot of work, there's a lot of education involved. And so I just want to make sure that this civil service field is open to our kiddos. So anyway, thank you, Chief Sapien. Hopefully we can connect with you offline about this. I know that Angel is hoping to present the youth master plan, I think, beginning of next year. But all of these youth programs have to make sense and fit the bigger picture. You know, all these pieces, these are puzzle pieces that we as policymakers need to make sure that we connect as well, as we're serving in different committees. But thank you for the report, and thank you for the feedback.
All right, thank you. Is that it, Councilmember Reynolds?
Motion to approve if it hasn't been done.
Yeah, not yet. We'll take the motion.
Second.
We have a second. Thank you. I don't see any other hands, so I'll come back. A couple things. So, and appreciate that advice, Councilmember Reynolds. I think you're spot on, and we absolutely want to be recruiting from within here, and with our programs where we're able to invest. I think it's great to gear individuals to the fire department. I'll put in the plug as well to our police department as well. And certainly, you know, it's a benefit to us to have our local youth be able to come into our workforce. Okay, so in regards to, I think we have a lot of benefits coming with the 3 budgeted engine companies that'll be added. I am curious what the future looks like after that, and want to hear kind of what the growth plan, if any, there's been sort of discussion on that. Beyond that, what does that look like, timeline to continue to grow, especially again, kind of sort of pointing in the areas where we're building and densifying, like downtown. So just wanted to hear from you, Chief, on that.
Right. So pretty. I don't have it to share with you, but certainly it's been my experience that it's pretty compelling data that says that as population increases, our call volume increases. It's been a pretty direct relationship over many, many years. We have some things occurring within the city that have been going on for a little while now that are resulting in changes to existing response areas. That includes, or primarily, I would say, densification of the city overall, where in some areas of town where we didn't have high density housing and we now do, that has a direct correlation to call volume. And we're seeing some performance changes amongst individual fire companies out there, resulting from just higher call volume, more instances where resources have to respond from further away. I do think, more specific to your question, and in the nearer term, I think the information I gave you on how much overtime was worked in fiscal year 2021 and the drivers. So it's been 2 years now where we've had, even the word extraordinary doesn't describe what's going on statewide from a fire perspective, and how much resourcing we're putting out there. We're at higher levels than we've ever been. Certainly COVID-19 has had an impact by way of driving more absences and creating more overtime for our personnel. And so in some ways, I'm hoping that we're seeing just a bit of a blip where overtime is increased for specific reasons. But on the other hand, that number of hours and the equivalent of how much each firefighter is having to work, it is concerning. There is a point where you know, we're a little different than most other agencies. Fire departments generally, we don't give options for overtime, right? Our daily staffing is what it is. And if someone doesn't want to work overtime, we call it mandatory overtime, and they have to come in and fill in. And so we do have some, you know, imagine being at home making plans and then finding out that your plans are canceled on a fairly regular basis, as things have been so busy over the last couple of years. It has an impact. So my thoughts are around whether or not we need to consider a higher vacancy or a higher relief staff level than we have today. Maybe that'll make sense. I have to be realistic and know that that's competing against the fact that we're opening more resources, and that's going to be costly and require more financial resources to open those 3 fire engines that you mentioned. And so all of that is a challenge in terms of how we solve some of these workload issues in the short term. Longer term, if you recall, council member, when we provided the prioritization of stations for Measure T, we actually sought to include additional thoughts about additional fire engines beyond what Measure T could provide, so that we can get everybody thinking about the fact that we're still not quite a stout enough footprint to provide the level of service that our performance measures require. And so I think my job is to continue to monitor our performance and refine those station placements over time, and then maybe we can figure out a way to keep the council informed on what the needs are of the organization.
Okay, thank you. And another factor that ties into this is just like retirements, right? Attrition in the years ahead. And I know we've had years where we've had larger academies, right, or a lot of hiring, and then what that amounts to is, 25, 30 years later, you get large numbers of people leaving over a span of years. What does that look like for the years ahead? Do you have an anticipated idea, of what the attrition will start to look like over the next number of years?
Right. Thank you, council member. Let me see if I can pull up a frame of reference for myself. So there are some big waves that hit probably the city entirely, but certainly the fire department. So there was a fairly significant expansion in the mid 70s of fire department staffing. We saw in the mid 90s the attrition levels high because of that, because that group came to retirement age. We're right at that point in time today where that big wave comes again, just based on that cycle of hiring. We do anticipate a larger than normal amount of retirement activity over the next 2 years. For that reason, we added an academy, a fire academy, which will begin in mid-November of this year, which wasn't initially scheduled, but will be an additional, hopefully 28 or so firefighters will be added to the roster. And then we have, just on the heels of that one, another one anticipating a large amount of retirements in January. We don't know that'll occur yet, but we're certainly planning an academy distances. But yeah, that attrition is very much on my mind right now in terms of planning academy.
Sorry, I was on mute. And I know that higher ed has helped the police department, and I know that, as you've stated here, it has not been employed yet. As we start to see, I think, higher numbers of attrition, and we need to have, as we're already doing, additional academies, and potentially even, upfront some of those academies in preparation for people retiring and leaving. I think that's a strategy we've seen successful over the police department, and with as thinly staffed as we are, I think we need to deploy all those strategies in order just to keep the minimum staffing that we have. The other issue is training. So I know we're sort of in the middle right now of our closing down our training center and opening the new one. How are you going to navigate that with the academies you have coming online right now? What is there a gap that we need to fill? How are you going to navigate that?
There is a bit of a tightrope walk there. The academy we're scheduled to start in November should be completed by the time we get to the date where we have to move out of the current site on Barack Obama Boulevard. The scheduled tower opening will be mid-year of next year. We won't have the office and classroom space quite available yet in the new facility, but the tower will be. And so we are starting to evaluate whether there's opportunities to bring things like shower trailers, locker trailers, that sort of thing in to bridge time to complete that springtime academy. I'm also in conversations with our neighboring agencies to get a sense of their timing and their use of their training facility as well. So I've made a promise to myself that I'm going to have that academy if the numbers are there to support it. I just need to figure out the logistics of how exactly we make sure there's adequate facilities for our folks to get through it.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I know this is now annual, and we'll hear back next year. And as I said, I'd look forward to getting the update on the specific issue of paramedics. But prior to our budget in the coming year, just because I think the timing of this is not exactly perfect for tying it into our budget, I would like to see you return to this committee before, I would say, before May, so likely by April, and in partnership, and this really be direction for yourself and for our assistant city manager here, Lee, to work with the budget office and to be able to come up with a better sort of recommendation and analysis of a timeline of what we just discussed. Number one, the expected attrition rates over the next, I'd be looking at 5 years if possible, but I'll let you decide if you think that, there's a better number of years, 3 years or something like that. But I'm really interested in the near term, midterm, I guess I'll call it. And then as well, what it looks like for the growth and the densification that we have going on. And maybe we could take some of that analysis we did with Measure T, but then actually put some plans to it, ultimately that the council could look at to say, do we need to start funding some of these growth areas or new stations, right? Engine companies sooner or sometime within the next 5 years in order to tie up with what we have with the growth and development, and then also with the attrition that we have. So I'd just like to have a more strategic conversation at this committee, at least before the budget, before we approve our next budget. And that may be something that becomes more commonplace after this annual report, just in order to help educate us before we approve the budget. So I'll just ask the maker of the motion if you can include that into the motion, and then I'll turn it back actually over to you, Councilmember Dona.
Yes, of course, Chair.
And your hand is up. Did you have anything else? I was through if you wanted to add something else.
Oh, actually, I just remembered a question, so thank you. Yeah, no, that my hand was up from before. I just had, the last question was about the arson investigators and how that, there's only 3 of them and they don't get backfilled when they're off, on vacation or sick or what have you. How does that impact, or what is the impact that that's had on investigations?
So it has an impact. We try to ask our company officers to identify circumstances where we definitely need arson investigator approach. And they do that, and we work to get someone by phone call, or we secure a scene longer and wait for an available arson investigator, that sort of thing. But it's not ideal. And the arson investigators' work is somewhat different than everyone else in the field in that their work requires persistence and pursuit of evidence and understanding what's happening, and in some cases making arrests and pursuing cases through the legal system. And so having gaps in coverage is tough, which is really why I've raised it here today. As part of the challenge for the fire department to maintain a continuity of service. And so I will tell you that we do our best to try to address those issues that arise that we know need Arson Unit attention. but it's far from ideal in the way it's set up today.
Yeah, no, of course, I think that's an important area to make sure that there's, I don't know which actually, they're all areas of the work that you do are important. And when one isn't to full capacity, I'm sure it impacts the rest of the team. And so I wish we had all the budget in the world so we can provide all of the positions with the level of capacity that we need in this city, but unfortunately that's not our story. But I would like to see in the future how maybe you are, and it sounds like you're informally training some of these other firefighters to take on that role, or at least maybe be cast a shadow that day with that particular investigator. It would be wonderful to see if maybe there is a more formal version of, I don't know, a junior investigator or leading up to an investigator, so that those folks could also be on a track, hopefully soon, to become investigators themselves.
Thank you. Yeah, Arson Investigator is a distinct rank, and we generally have interest within the organization in ongoing development. There's certainly minimum qualifications they have to meet, and they continue to work through their careers to get there, and then they get to a place where they're eligible to test for the position. But certainly, I hear what you're saying in terms of reinforcing the effort.
Thank you. That's all, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that that addition on the motion was comfortable with the seconder. I believe that.
And Chair, I do have some information that hopefully can put that question at ease a little bit. I'm certainly willing to go back and do more, but I do have some hard data for you if you're interested in hearing it.
Sure.
So our staff has looked at expected attrition levels in the next 3 years up to fiscal year 23, 2024. Retirement eligibility for those years in 21, 22, which is the year I told you that I have concern about. We have 38 that are eligible. If you recall, each academy is about 25, and so we aren't feeling like we can't keep pace because we would have the ability to hire more than that 38. What is an added confounder for us is that we are also adding companies. So those 14 positions for Engine 37 is where I made the decision to add the academy in November just to accelerate our hiring rate. In fiscal year 22-23, we have 42 people who are eligible. I want to emphasize for each of these years that eligibility does not necessarily equate to behavior. There's some folks, for example, I'm in my 32nd year here, several years past retirement eligibility, and we have quite a few others that are in the same position. And then finally, year 23, 2024, there are 19 personnel that become eligible for retirement.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Sounds like you have a lot of that data. I look forward to seeing that and being able to have a further discussion on it next year. And yeah, I was asking the seconder of the motion if you were comfortable with that addition.
Yes, I am.
Great, thank you. All right, we'll now do a roll call vote, please.
Arenas?
Yes.
Jones?
Aye.
Jones? Mayhem?
Aye.
Jimenez?
Aye.
Peralez?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll go back to item D1, our Personal Care Business Compliance Initiative follow-up report. And I believe we have Lieutenant Spears. Oh, and the chief is here, Chief Motto.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I was hoping to see if my slideshow presentation would pop up here. Bear with me. On up here?
I think it's on the agenda, so you just need to ask the person can they see it, can they see it or get it up. So I know it's on the agenda. Is it possible to pull it up there?
Councilmember Perales, I can't see the presentation. Is it someone that can?
Yeah, let me ask our clerk's office, is there a presentation that you have for this that you can share? Yes.
Thank you, Mike.
We can go back to the beginning slides, please.
Yeah, it looks by number, that might be slide 5. So there we go.
Thank you. We can go to, all right. We can go to the next slide here. All right. Members, my name is Lieutenant Brian Spears. I currently oversee the Special Investigations Intelligence and Vice Administrative Unit. I have taken over for the retired Paul Messier, who retired, 6-7 months ago. So I am familiar, for the most part, with the audit and information. So if I don't have the correct answer for you, I will in fact utilize resources to get it for you, okay? So I want to start with just a walkthrough timeline for some of the issues. And if we were to take a look, the council first added the personal care business compliance initiative to the council's priority list back in March of 2017. In February of 2018, the Vice Unit began implementation by taking enforcement programs against the illicit massage businesses. September of 2018, PD reported to PISFIS on the progress made by that program. At the time, there was 107 illicit massage businesses closed. In this report, PD recommended closing all 3 elements of the council's priorities. In March of 2019, the City Council closed the priority as a part of the council priority setting session. PD reported out on PISFIS on the programs, including the dates from 2019, 2020, with a total of 212 illicit massage businesses closed in 2020. I am aware that in November of 2020, a code enforcement officer, was arrested, and which contributed to the October of 2021, code enforcement management control audit. And I'll circle back to that. Slide number 3, please. This is what it looks like up to date. 7 additional illicit massage businesses were closed over the past year, totaling 219. And that's a grand total from 2018. Based off of the last report, we observed the trend start heading towards from the illicit massage businesses to the residential brothels. And for note, at this point in time, there are 33 locations of massage permitted businesses. 5 are in the process. Slide 4, please. So when you look at some of the sex ads, you look at the difference and the drop from the illicit massage business ads that were posted from last year of 2020 to 2021. So definitely a decline. However, the problem, still a few issues. If I have the next slide, please. And what I wanted to illustrate here is just real simple. The face of a business brothel, which is just an operating business, compared to a residential brothel, which the setting is advanced into large-scale apartment complexes. It doesn't mean that we are not still going to take this lightly. So we're coming up with alternative plans. Next slide, please. Specifically in the enforcement and prevention side, as well as the intervention program, we've added a huge component, and that's the human trafficking. So from the legal perspective, whenever a complaint is still received from the PD, we will look at it from a variety of different directions, bringing in the human trafficking unit to assist with the success rescue of survivors versus is this a vice problem based off of the problem or the criteria. So we will continue to work in collaboration, but we're adding the human trafficking unit into the equation. And as you follow it down, regulatory with the business tax systems, and again, I will circle back with the programs that have been implemented, including the education. The Landlord Education program is still proven to be successful, and we will still maintain our partnerships and collaborations with the Community Solutions and South Bay Coalition to end human trafficking. Next slide, please. To get a little deeper into who will be within the collaboration, after having an extensive conversation and meetings with the human trafficking unit, the human trafficking unit kind of explained in great detail of how they're finding their success when they're dealing with residential brothels. And so I wanted to make sure that we highlight some of the involved parties, a large majority of the parties, and they're listed on this particular slide. Next slide, please. For implementations, I wanted to make sure we just touched on a few things that are, and this is me circling back from some of the results of the audit. So we start talking about the audit recommendations and where the PD, specifically the Intel unit, human trafficking, as well as the permit unit would assist and work together cohesively to implement the following. So one, it identifies, the recommendations identified specifically ironing out our role and responsibility, as well as code enforcement's role and responsibility when we're dealing with the illicit massage businesses, okay? And then to ensure staff resources are available and we also want to make sure that we update, the massage business registries, and that will be implemented within the 2022-2023 budget process. We will develop a roster of massage businesses based on active business tax certificates and certificates under the California Massage Therapy Council. We anticipate that will be completed by April of 2022. We will implement outreach programs informing and educating businesses on the City of San Jose's massage ordinance. That task is anticipated to be completed by April of 2022. And we will be implementing, hopefully in July of 2022, the annual license renewal reminders. And at this point, questions?
All right, thank you very much, Lieutenant. And we'll first go over to our members of the public. And just as a reminder, this is item D1. This is the Personal Care Business Compliance Initiative follow-up report. You'll have 2 minutes. And first up will be Tessa Woodmansey.
Thank you very much. Yes, well, these are the issues that we've been dealing with our community is the issues of human trafficking and sex trafficking, those type of things, and what we're building into our community that prevents those type of things. And what does prevent those type of things are, resilient neighborhoods and the way our city is being built. And, like Allery Middlebrook says, everything is land use. Everything about it is land use. And so when you create a land use that allows for hotels in residential neighborhoods by high schools, that Bellarmine High School, that is going to be using this corridor of Stockton to get to the Diridon station, from Bellarmine that's in our neighborhood, and it's going to pass a hotel. And when you have hotels, you're building in, basically anonymity, because we don't know. These are not neighbors. These are people coming from all over the world. And this is what you're building into our communities. And this is what we're saying needs to stop. And, to prevent the issues of human and sex trafficking that we're seeing in our communities. And so we have to, that's the land use is so critical to that. And that when you put that into our neighborhoods, like Paul Soto was saying, when you put, X-rated movie theaters into his neighborhood and the sexual abuse that he experienced, this is what we're needing to really look at to prevention and creating resilient communities and that's why our community is saying we want neighbors, not transients. And, this is what we're talking about and you're not listening. And it's very frustrating because these are the kind of problems we're trying to avoid. So that's the issue that we need to really look at our land use and support.
Thank you, Tessa. All right, and our last speaker will be caller with the last four digits, 5140.
You guys sound like the Hawaii 5-0, man. Human trafficking, international crime. You guys can't solve any crime. You guys are going to do this. You guys make money off of these permits, just like you make money off the permits for selling pot and the permits for the strip clubs and all these things. You guys help facilitate it. It still exists because somebody's getting paid somewhere, right? Why is it existing? I mean, and that hoodlum you had working for code enforcement. I mean, one minute he's telling someone to tear down a fence, and the next minute he's getting a rub down at the massage parlor. These are the kind of people you hire? Oh my God. Not to mention all the other guys who've been busted in San Jose PD. Hey, remember Ken Foster? Guy was trying to launder $18 million through a security business. All of a sudden, everybody starts retiring after that onion starts getting peeled and the sausage started getting made. You guys need to clean your act up is what you need to do. And these things are still existing. Why? How are they still existing? Because you guys still get permits for it. I mean, who's in charge of permits now? Tabaldi? She's in charge of permits. Oh, wait, she's doing training now. Yeah, class act, that one. Captain Tabaldi, real class act. But yeah, I'd like to have your answers on who you're hiring, what kind of background checks you're doing versus sending out a guy who measures a fence or a flagpole versus a policeman who's got maybe a little bit more power. Go in there and see these places and see what's going on, or maybe some kind of health department inspections, things like that. Maybe that would be another way to see what's going on. But I don't believe you guys are able to control anything because you can't solve any crimes. I've never ever heard of San Jose PD solving any crimes except maybe like a traffic citation. You guys are good at that, okay? Back in the 90s, you guys were great at jaywalking tickets. Now
okay, and I did see, I know, Blair, you didn't have your hand up beforehand. I saw it pop up. If you wanted to speak on this item, Blair, you can go ahead and raise your hand. I'll let you provide public comment. And if not, I'll go back to members of the committee. I don't see any hands from my colleagues at the moment. All right, Councilmember Arenas.
Thank you, Chair. Typically, I don't respond to our public comment because that's not our role. But I do want to start off with just by pointing out that our police department has closed 218 massage parlors that were illegal. And so I think they've done, a wonderful job in integrating advocates as well as advancing some of their standard operating procedures, not only in this field, but in sexual assault in general. And so I have personally seen a lot of the progress and growth in order to become a better police department or continue with our police department procedures and standards that we have. And so I just wanted to take a moment to say that, and also that this is a demand area. And so if there wasn't a demand, this kind of illegal human trafficking and sex work wouldn't exist. And if the abuse of female bodies and children and that demand didn't exist, we wouldn't be talking today about any of this. And we would be just focused on robberies and burglaries and everything else, but that's not the case. So we are looking at personal care businesses that move rather quickly and that reestablish themselves rather quickly. And so I know that one of the ways in which you have all shared with me that you approach this in order to solve for this quickly is to have a regional approach. And unfortunately, it pushes this business, I won't say this business, this practice into different parts of our city and into different parts of our county. So, and in order to stay connected regionally, the LEAP database was something that I believe Lieutenant Macier had shared with us in the past. And I believe that they had committed to continuing to work with Alameda County, which is one of the counties that we have a lot of arrests regarding sex work. And so I wonder where that's at. What's the progress for that?
We are in fact still working with several counties, including Alameda. I don't have, is there something specific you were asking, Council?
Are you both using LEAP in order to stay connected on cases and where perpetrators are going?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so how's that working out? How are you using the LEAP database to do that?
The majority of some of the information, what we're doing is by incorporating our human trafficking unit, instead of just the illicit massage businesses, we're taking all of those particular leads and we're doing a compare and contrast with not only with Alameda County and the surrounding agencies, but also with the Santa Clara County Human Trafficking Task Force as well. What we don't want to do is pass information or actually hinder information, because anytime that we are working with each other, you may have that key piece that's going to make the case. Right. And it's essential. So if we're not communicating and we're not sharing this particular information, we're going to fail. And failure is not an option for us.
Right. I understand that, although bureaucracies unfortunately have created systems for us to have some cracks in it. And so we have to make sure that we look at some of those instances. And so I wanted to make sure that the database is being used on both ends. I think the last time that you all shared was that you continue to input information into LEAP. And is Alameda also doing the same on their end?
It's been down. So I'll jump in. Yes, the LEAP database is a network that connects various agencies and counties, primarily cities, together in sharing reports of incidents, not only crime reports, but these type of incidents. And one of the things that we wanted to add is that our Special Victims Unit, which one component is human trafficking, they're involved in monthly meetings regionally and also here locally. And as Lieutenant Spears had mentioned, they are also part of the current Human Trafficking Task Force, which is a part of the District Attorney's Office, which has a host of members as listed in the memo, not only law enforcement agencies, but also regulatory agencies to identify these type of locations so we can target those. And as Lieutenant Spears mentioned, as these tips come in, that task force and our groups work together to share that information, because quite often it's the same individuals or same group of individuals that are involved in this type of activity.
Okay. And in order for that partnership to be effective, we just need to make sure that they're providing the information. And so is that helpful at this moment? Are they providing enough information so that we can kind of nip this practice in the bud when we start seeing things sprouting up?
Yes, they are. And along with other, these trends tend to change. So we sometimes at times get a rush from Monterey County. So now we're in direct communication with Monterey County. And so as this continues to move and evolve and try to become elusive, we're going to continue to maintain that communication so that we can provide that information to one another.
Okay, thank you. One of the things that I feared from a lot of the closures on the massage parlors, and although I agree with all of the closures, I want them closed. They're one, functioning illegally, and two, having sex work on site that is absolutely also illegal. And one of the things that I was afraid of is that this kind of sex work would go, just really black market, and we wouldn't know. We wouldn't have a place where we can target. And I see that the brothels that have been identified, there's 7 of them, and I think 5 you'd mentioned in your speaking points that 5 are in the process of being closed, and 2 have been closed. From what I read in the report, it sounds like warrants is that the biggest obstacle in getting on site into a home so that you can search warrants? I mean, is it so? Wouldn't it be easier for us to have some level of control over some of these businesses and push those brothels out into the next area over so that they could do businesses or have business sites? I don't know if my message is getting clear, because I'm.
Well, you're passionate, and that's what's coming
No,
out.
I know I'm passionate, but what I'm saying is we're forcing this to really go under the radar here, and it's hard for us to get the search warrants to close those down. Even more, it was really easy. I mean, administratively, I think there was 100 and something closed massage parlors closed. We didn't even have to go there. There was no sting operation. There wasn't anything, and I feel like we are almost forcing this practice into a market that we can't really connect with, and that we can't really solve for, and that it's taking too much time. And in the meantime, we don't know if there's any children, any minors. We don't know how many people are being trafficked. It's beyond me. I'm not sure what the answer is to this, but these impediments have risen because of the search warrants really concern me, and really concern me for the true victims involved in all of this. And so how can we accelerate this so that we don't have 5 in process, 5 locations that we know are active that are in process?
So let me start with the residential brothels. Are they a challenge? Yes. So just to give you a little background, and I know I explained it in the very general within the memo. The process itself, when you still are searching for these phone, for the ad, We do get several complaints from the community. The community is extremely proactive with reporting the information, specifically when they start seeing a lot of traffic coming in and out. So we are getting those reports. Once we get those reports, it's some of the hoops that we jump through. It is time consuming, but it's plausible. And we have officers and investigators who are in fact targeting that perspective. But there's another perspective just as well. Our task force, our internet crimes against children, they are also proactively monitoring and ascertaining leads from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children based on and I would applaud each and every one of them. It's amazing. And so, Councilwoman, your passion, it resonates. But we do have investigators who are in fact making positive progress. What do we need? Additional manpower. We do. Yes, it's a time-consuming process. Yes, this particular sex trafficking, it's going to continue to be elusive, but we have to continue to find innovative ways to combat it.
Yes, and I am passionate, but I'm equally angry because this is an issue that we've been talking about for a couple of years, and I know that there's been some progress that has been made, and some that hasn't been made. The coordination with our advocates is absolutely important. I know that that's something that we've progressed in, and I wonder how we can expand it so that we can make sure that we always have an advocate on any of those operations. Is there any plans to increase that, Chief?
Well, I think, I'm sure there's always room for improvement if needed. I know that we currently work with Community Solutions and also the South Bay Human Trafficking Coalition when we come across a survivor of human trafficking. And I look at the reports every time or the notifications, not the full reports, but notifications when there is a human trafficking case and a survivor is located or found, and they are immediately connected with those resources as opposed to putting them into the system. So we're aware that the survivors need resources, and we are working with those agencies to provide that help to our survivors. Again, we can, our human trafficking unit and also our patrol officers, when they come across these, we can definitely take a look at the numbers to see if we need to expand additional advocates or how our resources are being used in these specific instances.
Right. Well, yes. And how many female Vietnamese or Spanish speaking officers do we have in the units? I know that you've made really good progress in increasing, but in the moment currently, how many do we have if we count all of the special units that have anything to do with any of these sting operations or the either human trafficking or massage parlors?
I don't know the exact number offhand in terms of the breakdown of how they identify in terms of race. As we know, when we had prior report outs on demographics of our department, they're all self-reported. But I can tell you that when we do operations, sting operations, we bring in officers, detectives that are representative of the audience that we're trying to target. I don't know, again, the exact breakdown in our human trafficking or special victims unit, but we can get back to you on that.
Yeah, I would love to learn a little bit more about that, because I read in your report that you recognize this as a best practice, that is, it's trauma-informed approach. And so knowing that, then we need to match what we do on the daily with what we know. And I know that there was some difficulty in distinguishing between survivors and traffickers. And I believe this is when our advocates come in, or our officers who speak the same language, that have may create some quick friendship or some relationship with some of these survivors, so that we can distinguish between perpetrators and survivors. And so I'd also like to know how many, in terms of advocates, how often have we used our advocates? 36 of the 38 times that we've done, some sting operations. I'd like to know those numbers so that we can recognize and start establishing maybe a pattern of efficacy, right? In terms of which of these providers relates and connects best with the survivors, if they create some end results that work with us and that provide us with more information. I know that you're already being very selective about who you work with, and I absolutely agree with that. You should only work with agencies that have this level of expertise. And so I appreciate that acknowledgement and that practice that you all have adopted.
City Council Arenas, I do have a little more of an update for you.
Is it Detective Spears, Lieutenant Spears? How should I? Because last meeting, I was making somebody a captain that was not a captain, and I don't want to do that again.
Ryan.
Put my foot in my mouth.
No, Brian is fine.
All right.
One of the updates I do have for you is in the Human Trafficking Unit, there is a female Spanish speaker. They also have a Mandarin speaker and an Assyrian speaker. Each operation that was performed by the Vice Administrative Unit, with your recommendation, had included female investigators that were assigned to the operations that did in fact participate after your recommendation 100% of the time. After your recommendation as well, on each and every operation, there was a member of an advocate present each and every time.
Each and every time, 100%.
After your recommendation. Yes.
That's wonderful. Sometimes it's difficult to, we set up some protocols, and then when the time comes and the practice comes into play, there's a lot of things that are happening. And so I understand that some things might get overlooked. I'm glad that this is not one of them. So thank you for that additional information. The other effective practice that was mentioned in the report was the landlord education. You also mentioned it in your presentation. And I wonder if you are providing some of that information in some of the ethnic-based business associations, as well as, some of the housing advocate agencies, just so that they can have that information somewhere available. Even our own city business license. I don't know if it's the office or however they distribute that. I think we should, it's not only just on you as a police department to continue with that education program, but that it should be very well known, so that any business owner who's establishing themselves and happen to find themselves near one of these establishments, that they can call in. Is that something that we could do?
The landlord education being expanded to not just massage parlor businesses, but other businesses within the city. Is that just so I'm understanding?
Well, not the whole program, but information at the very least, so that other businesses can share information and report. Because in your report, I think that was part of some of the success was other businesses reporting suspicious behavior or patterns or trends. And so once people know what to look for, they can easily call in some of that activity. And instead of thinking, well, maybe I'm overthinking it, maybe it's really nothing, but that they've already seen this information and they have a number that they can call. And so I'm not asking for a very like a full-fledged, but something that could be distributed in the arenas that make sense, like our business licensing, our like I said, our ethnic-based business associations that they've already created relationship with businesses and they're starting up or they're barely opening up or somebody's opening up next to them. So just so that we can spread the word in terms of that you have a number to call, here's how to do it. Don't be afraid to get involved because there could be that kind of culture out there.
Yes. So to answer your question, yes, I believe so. And I will circle back with my team and we'll come up with some concepts.
Wonderful. And lastly, I apologize if I didn't catch this in your presentation. When will the list be ready in terms of the businesses in the tax system that are associated with massage parlors? That was something that was outstanding in the audit.
We should be complete by April of 2022.
April of 2022. Wonderful. Thank you. And sir, you've earned your stripes and I want to call you Lieutenant Spears because that is what you've earned. So I want to make sure that I give that and not call you Brian. Welcome. And I know that you've been in our force much longer than I've been around. But I know that it's new, you're new to our PSFIS, our Public Safety Strategic Planning Committee. And so I look forward to continuing to connect with you to learn about just some of the wonderful work that you're doing, as well as help prompt some of the work that needs to get done. I'm very afraid for our young girls and for the women out there. We've seen in the bi-monthly reports here that there's an increase in rape, there's an increase in domestic rape. There's been, and I've shouted this from at every committee meeting. World Health Organization recognizes that in pandemic times, violence increases against children and young and women and men potentially. And so we need to make sure that we are as proactive as we can sorting those brothels because we have essentially moved them into a different kind of model. And they're going to survive. They're going to survive all of us. And this is what really scares me, is that they're going to go really undercover and we will not have the kind of complaints that we've had before, where people are calling in because this is their place of residence. They are maybe neighbors across the hallway and they may not want to get involved in the same way so they don't suffer repercussions. And so it really scares me for what we don't know what is happening in some of those brothels, 7 that we've identified, but I'm sure that there's much more. The demand of is much more than 7 brothels, because if we've closed 218, that's a demand of 218 massage parlors. Where have they gone? And how many more brothels do we have in San Jose that we don't know about? And more importantly, how many victims are out there and victims who are trying to become survivors, that we can facilitate that for them. And so I know it's a very difficult job, and I want to thank you for doing the work that you're doing. And hopefully we will be able to see a lot more progress in terms of search warrants and all the bureaucratic things that are impeding us now from breaking the door down and getting some of those women out there. So thank you for your work, and hopefully we can stay connected so we can learn about those in process. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So this is Sergio. I think Councilmember Peralez.
Sorry, motion to approve.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there a second?
Sure, second.
Okay, cool. So just to explain what's happening is that I think Councilmember Peralez is still on the call. Unfortunately, he can't manage the meeting at the moment, and so I'm going to be taking over. And so remind me, anyone, we've already taken public comment on this, correct?
Yes,
okay.
sir.
It feels like so long ago. Okay, all right, wonderful. So there's a motion and a second on the floor. If we can get a roll call vote, please.
Arenas,
Yes.
Jones,
Aye.
Mayhem,
Aye.
Jimenez,
Aye.
and I have Peralez. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next item is the number 4, I believe, and the last item is the Park Ranger Program Update. We can get the PRNS staff to, and thank you so much for hanging out with us for so long. We know it's been a long meeting, but appreciate you guys presenting. Take it away whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair and members of the committee. My name is Avio Tom, and I'm the Deputy Director for the Parks Division of Parks, Recreation, and Neighborhood Services. Joined today by Pam Helmke, Supervising Park Ranger, John Ciccarelli, our Director, and Neil Rufino, our Assistant Director. We're here today to provide the committee with an update on the Park Ranger program's highlights and challenges from the past year and our work plan for the year that we are now in. The program, now in its 49th year, is an integral part of the department and supports Activate SJ, our 20-year strategic plan that defines our guiding principles of stewardship, nature, equity and access, identity, and public life. The program's mission is to provide a safe and enjoyable park experience by protecting and educating the public, providing recreational opportunities, and protecting, preserving, and enhancing the natural and cultural resources of the city, its parks, trails, and open spaces. Park rangers render emergency medical care, conduct search and rescue operations, perform wildland fire prevention patrols, as well as provide initial attack wildland fire suppression. As stewards of the city's natural and cultural resources, park rangers work to protect and monitor parklands, restore native vegetation, maintain rustic hiking trails, and educate the public on the cultural and natural history of San Jose. This past year, despite vacancies, the program took intentional steps to transition to the generalist service model that the City Council accepted on January 29th, 2019. Although interpretive programming was limited this past year due to COVID restrictions, the program hired a temporary interpretive specialist who is currently developing a program-wide interpretive plan and will assist rangers in completing certified interpretive guide training. This plan and the certification will give rangers the tools and techniques to create and deliver inclusive programming, which fosters positive use and interactions with parks and the environment. Additionally, our park rangers have focused on resource management projects that contribute to public safety and park health. For instance, in coordination with Animal Care and Services, the program led the development of a department coyote coexistence and management plan that establishes a standard department response to wildlife-human conflict on city parkland. I'm especially proud of the key role that park rangers have played in working to reduce fire fuels. Alum Rock Park, California's oldest municipal park, established in 1872, sits in a very high fire hazard severity zone in the wildland urban interface in the Diablo Range. Starting this past spring, park rangers and park maintenance collaborated with the San Jose Fire Department, CAL FIRE, the California National Guard, and the San Jose Conservation Corps to conduct a coordinated wildland fire fuels reduction project at the park. Park rangers shared their experience and knowledge of this deep box canyon with the fire department to select work locations. And National Guard hand crews trained and led by CAL FIRE have served alongside crews from the San Jose Conservation Corps, supported by a state grant, to reduce ladder fuels, thin, highly flammable vegetation, remove exotic invasive plant species, and remove flashy fine fuels in high-risk areas along the park boundary to reduce the hazard to nearby properties. The San Jose Conservation Corps, with daily support from the park rangers, has continued these efforts into this fiscal year as part of the Resilience Corps. Together, park rangers and our partners have collaborated to make the neighboring community safer and this park more resilient as it approaches its 150th anniversary next spring. I'll turn it over now to Pam Helmke to talk a little bit about our public safety responses for this past year.
As Avi mentioned, park rangers are frequently the first public safety professional to arrive at the scene of an emergency in our park system. That can include wildfire, search and rescue, or medical emergencies. In fiscal 2021, the rangers responded to 156 wildland or outdoor fires on park lands, with the majority of those along the Coyote Creek watershed. Rangers could provide San Jose Fire with access assistance. We conducted initial attack suppression activities and worked alongside San Jose Fire to conduct mop-up activities and then returning to the site after to check for rekindles. Rangers also responded to 55 medical events and 11 search and rescue events over the fiscal year. As you probably noticed from the chart, medical events did decline, and we attribute that to the COVID closures of Happy Hollow Park and Zoo and the Action Sports Park, as well as our currently decreased ranger staffing, which impacted our rangers' ability to get to some events. So San Jose Fire would typically arrive before us. We did have two significant events this reporting cycle. They were both search events with rangers taking lead roles in a very complex searches with air rescue components. At the beginning of the year, the fiscal year, we had one event where the rangers entered into a unified command with Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office Search and Rescue Unit to locate a lost hiker. She had been lost overnight in Alum Rock Park. Our search teams, combined ranger and volunteer search and rescue team members, searched for over 10 hours in severe 100-degree heat in very rugged terrain in the southeast part of the canyon. We were finally able to locate the victim, and she was about 150 feet over the edge of an embankment. We made a request to CAL FIRE, and they dispatched their helicopter to conduct a short-haul rescue, where she was safely extricated to our parking lot and transferred to a waiting ambulance. We had an additional event where an off-trail hiker at Alum Rock Park fell, suffering serious injuries, and he was in a very rugged, non-public area of Penitencia Creek. Rangers were able to locate the victim and provide medical care, and then worked with San Jose Fire and CAL FIRE to again conduct an air rescue. This was particularly challenging as this is a very narrow section of canyon, and we were working in low light conditions as sunset was quickly approaching. Working cooperatively, we were able to extricate the victim again to the parking lot and transfer him to a waiting ambulance for transport to a trauma center. Rangers also conducted over 11,000 enforcement contacts in this reporting period. In keeping with our department's philosophy to use the lowest appropriate level of enforcement, over 99% of our enforcement contacts were handled with education and warnings. You'll see a decrease over time in citations, reports, and arrests, and this is attributed to the change in our program service model. Our rangers are no longer conducting unaccompanied watershed protection patrols in the streams, and instead are focusing on general park operations. And we also attributed a part of the increase to our continued response to county health order compliance on our parklands. As I mentioned, we are having some vacancies. The Ranger program is continuing to actively seek out qualified, diverse applicants to fill our vacancies. We currently have 2 applicants in the background process and are preparing first round interviews for an additional 7 applicants. We hope to have applicants that successfully complete the interview process start backgrounds before the holiday furlough. The department is continuing to work with our Human Resources and Office of Employee Relations to update our non-sworn park ranger class specification, and the department is also continuing discussions with Human Resources on the potential to develop a park ranger apprentice program. The goal of an apprentice program would be allow the department to recruit candidates that might not be able to complete the required education on their own. The apprentice program would allow a motivated candidate to obtain the needed college coursework while working for the city and gaining practical experience. Upon successful completion of the apprenticeship program, they would be appointed as a sworn park ranger.
So looking to the year that we're in, our work plan in many ways carries on some themes from this past year. We're going to continue intentionally assigning park rangers to resource management projects and interpretive programs in the spirit of environmental stewardship, education, and resilience, and as part of a generalist service model. The department, in coordination with the city manager's office and HR, will continue to prioritize recruitment and retention efforts and work towards implementation of a body-worn camera policy in the near term and a full park ranger duty manual. The 2021-2022 year also brings new park and recreation facilities and some milestones. In partnership with the San Jose Conservation Corps and the police department, park rangers will help steward the Coyote Creek Trail that is nearing completion on the east side of Kelly Park and opening very soon. And we'll also be involved in the Resilience Corps as we explore career pathways for these young adults to join our ranks, finding really meaningful work in the protection of the park system. Finally, in 2022, as Rangers celebrate their 50th year as a program, they will also play a central role in a series of events leading up to the 150th anniversary of Allen Rock Park, which is, as I've said a couple times probably, the oldest municipal park in the state. We're quite proud of that. With that said, we recommend the committee accept the annual report on the Park Ranger Program for 2020-2021, and we're available for any questions.
Cool, thank you so much, Avi. I think what we're going to do is go to the community first, and I see if I can get some help in this. First time I've done this on Zoom is we have Tessa Woodmansey. Do I unmute her or someone unmutes her?
I can unmute her. Hear me? I guess somebody unmuted me already.
There you go. Go ahead, Tessa. And the same thing applies as it relates to the topic. So please stay on topic.
All right. Thank you so much. And we really appreciate the little reminder of the topic. So that's really great. Thank you. Anyway, yeah, I'm talking. It was interesting to talk to hear about the wildlife urban interface. And you do hear about that a lot as we're facing so many fires. And, you know, just to straighten the record, that the misconception about our, you know, using indigenous ways to deal with our fires is, you know, by, you know, these controlled burns. We see what happened in Santa Cruz already, a controlled burn that got out of control and required evacuations. And what's happening in terms of our climate issues is that it's so dry out there that the science is saying it's too dangerous for us to do controlled burns. You know, that was something that could have been done back in our indigenous past, but not anymore because of the dryness that is, you know, infiltrating all of our forests. So anyway, just straightening out that record. And basically, you know, what, you know, these rangers that are trying to deal with our sustainability, and that's so critical as they are dealing with fires and trying to make our lands, you know, make San Jose sustainable. And a big issue about that is how we are dealing with our, you know, our fossil fuel use and also our building resiliency into our communities. And I very much appreciated what we were talking about yesterday in regards to making the Guadalupe Gardens a community garden. And we really need to follow through on that and have that become, that is part of our resiliency. And a lot of what I'm hearing about with our resiliency core, and one of the critical parts of that was, you know, environmental stewardship. But I'm glad to hear that you're engaging them in our woodlands, our you know, our wildlife areas. But we need to do more with our resiliency core to really build food production.
Thank you, Tessa. Now we have Blair Beekman. Take it away, Blair.
Thank you. Thank you to Councilperson Perales. I hope he's okay. He offered if I wanted to speak a few words on the previous item. That was really nice of him. I'd put up my hand, but I figured I'll just wait till public comment time. So a thank you to him. For this item, I guess first, about a few of Tessa's words, I think there can be a way to reintroduce ourselves to the ideas of controlled burning as used to be done so long ago. I think the way our controlled burning practices are working now are extremely out of control and way too large and way too, they're trying to consider real estate needs before the needs of people. And they've really got their priorities wrong in how to consider controlled burning. We're trying to put that back into place. So I don't quite know what Tessa's trying to say. I think we really got to rely on our older practices and those are people who are helping shape our future of controlled burning in California and Northern California at this time, who are very interesting people. Sorry about that. Thank you. To offer a few words about park ranger issue. I think the example of what's going on at the Columbus Park area with the fence issue is a good example of how we talk about the future of park ranger issues. I mean, that area needs a real light touch in how to talk about and how to develop. And it's a process that I hope the whole community can be a part of in understanding how people can slowly exit from that area, find housing for people for that area, and just to respect that area can't be used anymore. It's a bit of a danger. And for all of us to understand kind of light touch practices, I hope we can do that.
Thank you, Blair. Now we have a caller ending in 5140. Go ahead, sir.
Where do I start? Park police helping people, showing people about wilderness. Give me a break. The dealings I've had with the park police, bunch of fascists, people who like to arrest people, people who like to get in the faces of our African-American communities who are sitting peacefully at a picnic bench, told the guy waving his aluminum frame ticket face or a ticket book in the guy's face, threatening a citation because he was sitting at a picnic bench, claiming it was because of COVID. No signs, no nothing. This guy was Derek Chauvin, part 2. Actually, he was part 1 because this is what happened about a month before the George Floyd incident. Those are the kind of people that you have on. They aren't people who are, showing you the park. They are people going in there to be ogres and to boss people around and act like it's 1983 again. These guys are the tough guys. These guys aren't the nice guys. Not only that, when they cite you, I've been cited by these guys. They don't even know how to talk, let alone read, and their writing skills, terrible. You can't, these guys, not only that, if you don't sign the ticket, they don't have a car to drive you downtown, right? They'll arrest you, then they'll tell you, well, I don't have a car to bring in. Well, what do I do? Walk? No, I gotta end up just signing the ticket. But you know what? The guy was a liar because he did have a car, right? But he wanted to show me who was boss because I wouldn't sign a ticket that I couldn't read. So when you hire people in this hiring process, make sure they've at least gone through the 5th grade. The 5th grade's a minimum because these people can't even write out a simple citation. And their attitude, forget it. If you think I'm a...
Okay, thank you, sir. I think Tessa's already spoke, although she has her hand up, so we'll hold that to the end. We're gonna bring it back to the committee. I think Councilmember Arenas, you have your hand up. Is that the case? Okay, how about we'll go to Chappie. Chappie, you got something to say?
Yes, I do, Vice Chair. I wanted to go back to the slide on staffing. And
you'll bring that up.
I'll pull it up momentarily.
Thank you.
So I'll just start talking till we get it up. So the staffing issue obviously has been a concern and issue for quite a while. And I know you you said you had that there were 2 candidates that were in background, and assuming that they passed background, then that would fill 2 of the 5.75 vacant positions, and then your goal is to fill the other 3 positions. And I just want to get a better feel in terms of timing and expectations on when those positions will be filled.
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Jones. That's correct. Our intention is to look to fill all of the full-time vacancies through these current recruitments. As Pam mentioned, we have 2 candidates currently in background. We have interviews coming up that include 7 more candidates. If these are new hires, new to the park ranger profession, we'd be looking to bring them, at least this next batch of folks going into interviews, we'd be looking to background them late this calendar year or early next calendar year. And then we'd put them through some elements of an academy as well as field training. So they would be self-sufficient as early as maybe next fall or maybe towards the end of 2022. Now, one thing that I imply in my answer, and also I realize we implied in our memo altogether, is that we are not hiring lateral candidates. The most efficient way that we could fill our ranks would be to hire people who have existing experience as park rangers. Unfortunately, we find, and it pains to say this, but we find that we are not the location or the program that people may choose to come to in this region. And one element that kind of stands behind that is unfortunately, our compensation is 10% below that of the county. So we find that we hire people, provide an excellent training opportunity, support our employees through academy and through field training, and they become highly competitive to go take a lateral at the county, which is unfortunately a pathway that several employees have done in the past. So with our current pipeline, we're looking at late next summer for initial folks, and then later into the fall for the next round.
Okay, so obviously, we knew that the pay was an issue for retention and recruitment. Is there a plan to at least, through the budget process or labor negotiation process to close that gap on pay?
Councilmember, what we can speak to is looking at the apprentice program. We're looking to move into a model where we really help build up park rangers. I think, as Pam may have mentioned before, we found that sometimes minimum qualifications can be a barrier, and we're more than eager to be supportive of candidates who we could hire, bring them on board, and we can support them through their accomplishment and completion of the necessary college coursework, while they also gain practical experience working for us. So that's the next step that we really want to explore.
Okay, great. And then my last question is, it was about 3 or 4 years ago, I had a budget document approved for a neighborhood park specific ranger. And obviously we've been carrying these vacancies, and so they haven't filled that particular position. And so I'm really focused on having that position filled. And I don't know if part of the strategy is for that to be the last position that's filled. But I just want to, let everybody know that that's been an area of focus. There's a demand in all the council districts and all the neighborhood parks for a park ranger to go out there and, observe and potentially cite and, provide, direction and all the other duties and tasks that a neighborhood park ranger would perform. And so I just want to just put on the record that I have an expectation that that position would be filled as quickly as possible, because it's been about 4 years, and I just don't want it to be the last position that's filled. So that's it. And thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Jones. Councilmember Arenas, I know that you had, I think I went over you just because I didn't see a response, but you have your hand up. Did you want to say anything on this topic? We'll go back to you. Go ahead, Sylvia.
I sure do, Chair. So my question was around
Lake Cunningham doesn't have a park ranger because there's other parks that I think absorb most of the attention of the park rangers. And that, I'm not going to name parks because it's not the park's fault. It's what the community's needs are, right? Although it's a shame not to have someone there at Lake Cunningham. Because there's so many folks who come through by foot, by car, by bike, and it would really be beneficial to have some interpretive programming, just like we find in any other of the other parks. I know that you mentioned, Avi, the county is very competitive compared to us. And I think it's time to start investing in continuing to invest. I'm sorry, not starting, because I know that our PRNS department works really hard, and our park rangers work really hard to make sure that everything is running. And so, what is the plan for Lake Cunningham and a park ranger?
Thank you, Councilmember, for the question. So, with our current staffing, our deployment priorities on a day-to-day basis would be Alum Rock Park, which will almost always get the first resource given how unique it is and isolated. Mm-hmm. Kelly Park, because of obviously Happy Hollow Park and Zoo, the Japanese Friendship Garden, and a host of issues that we find on site, including the fires that Pam mentioned. Lake Cunningham at this point actually is right next in the queue, and Pam, you can fill this in for me with greater detail, but we try to get somebody at Lake Cunningham most afternoons. So we won't be able to cover both a morning and an afternoon shift given current staffing levels, but especially with the Action Sports Park and Raging Waters we see, it's a great park, incredibly popular for picnicking. So we do our best to have a ranger there in the afternoons, especially when most people are out there. And this coming winter, with the drive-through experience that we're looking at, we're expecting to have a stronger ranger presence to help provide that event. Pam, feel free to jump in with more details about our scheduling.
Yeah, basically our schedule is loaded a little bit heavy to the afternoon shift right now to handle the closing duties at our parks, and so. We don't generally have a morning ranger at Cunningham, but as soon as the evening shift comes on, whenever possible, we direct a ranger out that way. We also have one of our non-sworn part-time rangers, our part-time benefited ranger, assigned out there on her weekend days. So we get more coverage on Saturday, Sunday, when of course the park is at its busiest. As the days get shorter and the two shifts start to compact closer together, we'll be able to get a little more time in the park out there. So, but it is one of our higher priority parks because of the Action Sports Park, the fact that it's a lake, which creates safety issues, and that it's a very popular destination. So that's why it's up at the top of the list.
Well, I really appreciate that. I would lose our park ranger presence, and so I'm glad that I know that it's a bit of a patchwork that you're doing, and greatly appreciated. And you go where the need is, and I'm absolutely supportive of that. I would love to see us evolve in terms of our parks. So we've seen how important they've been during the pandemic, and we could really turn some future generations into stewards of the environment and just outdoor spaces if we had some programming that would encourage that, right? And so I'm sure that Avi, you're shaking your head, and Neil, yes, like you've probably have already thought of this. It's just, it would be exciting to see something like that at Lake Cunningham. Also, and I know that you're already working on the career pipeline for our park rangers. I heard the difficulty in terms of our park rangers finding themselves to be a very much an asset, and they have to do whatever is best for their respective families as well, right? This is their livelihood and their career, and I wonder if there's an opportunity to really uplift the resiliency core in a way that maybe we hadn't originally thought, because I don't know that it was meant for park ranger career path. But in the same way that I was talking about the fire department and their lack, their need for additional staff, what is that relationship with resiliency core and the career pipeline for park rangers?
Councilmember, that's something we're actually very eager to explore. We have, for frankly, many years reported to this committee about the challenges in hiring and filling these positions. So we're very excited about creating the pipeline from the Resilience Corps, as well as from our local community colleges and colleges into the park ranger profession, specifically with the Resilience Corps. We are coordinating actually in about 10 days. Members of our team will be presenting to their participants about city careers, and more so, much more tangibly, what it looks like to apply for city jobs, because so oftentimes just the process is a barrier. Even signing up on city jobs is a barrier, right? So we're trying to break down those barriers and help create the smoothest pipeline possible, whether that is into a park ranger job, which comes with certain minimum qualifications that not all participants may at this moment hold, or into maintenance ranks, because we certainly have a huge need for additional maintenance employees. So we're really looking at all of those elements right now. And it's a conversation that we have begun with our HR department, because there are certainly some implications about creating pipelines here that we really welcome their involvement in.
Great, I appreciate it. I know that you have some completion dates that are coming up, and I'm really excited to see what is next. I know that the PRNS department and all of the city was doubling up on the EOC, and so I know that a lot of things just were put to the side, but not because it's intentional, but because we find ourselves in this position. So I'd love to see what is next for the park rangers. The last thing I was going to mention is I believe my team probably has already connected with you around Welch Park, and I don't know if you've seen this in other parks, but there seems to be a sale of alcohol, and it doesn't seem like it's the neighbors there, but it seems like they're vendors that don't have a alcohol license, and so. First of all, I thought alcohol was prohibited on our park spaces, and two, I didn't know that that we could have this kind of vendor at the parks. I mean, I don't know why we're not shutting these down rather quickly.
Councilmember, you're speaking to one of our great challenges, and it's something that we've been observing at a frankly, across the city, but there are a handful of parks that we're hearing from the community very regularly, including Hillview and Mount Pleasant Park. And what we're speaking to is clearly unsanctioned events. These are not events that have gone through our permitting process, because we would not have allowed that activity. And that presents a couple of challenges for us. One, a stewardship challenge, because unfortunately those events are often destructive to the parks. We see vehicles driving through the park infrastructure, breaking irrigation, and in some cases, we have teams repairing irrigation at some parks on a weekly basis, because we just see the events rolling through. And it also speaks to our challenge with unpermitted parks overall. When we get kind of awareness and intelligence of an upcoming unpermitted event, we do look to schedule, either on overtime or as part of their shift, a park ranger and maybe a member of our special permitted team to actually get out to the park. And Our goal is to try to get there before the event sets up, because once an event is set up and there might be 20 tents or 100 people, it's going to be very difficult for 1 or 2 rangers to really make a difference then. But we look to get in before the event takes hold. So we have made intentional efforts to do that. What we struggle with is, again, the bandwidth. So one ranger getting sent on that deployment pulls away a resource from Allen Rock or Kelly or Lake Cunningham.
No, that's difficult, Avi, and obviously they're drinking, so then it adds a different layer of security around that, having one person. So when does it become a call for the police department versus the rangers?
Without police here to speak for it, I'll just venture that if there's an event happening and it's serving alcohol, an unpermitted event, I think a call to 911 or to police is the most appropriate measure. Our program is not designed to get out and be responsive to those kind of calls for service, especially with the deployment limitations we have right now. And that is one area of conversation that we've had with a number of patrol captains. We've had really productive conversations. And for instance, most recently around Mount Pleasant Park, we're in close contact and coordination with Captain Trayer to look to really bring both of our resources to bear and really help that community try to root out a presence that isn't pro-social.
Yeah, that is great. There's a balance, because I know that there's folks who even at Welch, they've been doing this for years, and they create their own like off-site garage sale, if you will, and it's you can find it any Saturday of the month. It is going to be there, and it's pretty intense. And I don't know that that's a permitted activity, but it's not as intrusive and as dangerous as selling alcohol, especially when there's minors who are at the park, and if people don't distinguish between that, it's illegal, for crying out loud. So Captain Trayer is awesome. Well, I'm sure that we've already looped him in, but I was wondering if you were seeing this at a higher trend, because people were going to parks during the pandemic, and if it's just become kind of institutionalized into the park scenery there, and nobody calls it out anymore. And so if nobody's calling it out anymore, then we just need to be proactive on our end. But I completely understand where you're coming from, Avi. It's not an easy solve. And those were my questions and comments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Arenas. Let's go to Councilmember Mayhem, please.
Thanks, Vice Chair. I'll be very quick. I just want to pick up on my colleagues' questions and ask to what extent we're using external recruiting resources, or what else we've tried to accelerate the build out of a pipeline.
Thank you for the question, Councilmember. Pam, would you want to jump in and talk about the outreaches that we make?
Yeah, we are actually trying to recruit at the nationwide level. We post our announcements. Obviously, with COVID, we haven't been able to do job fairs anymore in person, but prior to that, we'd get out within the state. But we do post to over 120 universities and colleges that have programming that facilitates the park ranger profession, and those are across the United States. There are a series of National Park Service sponsored park law enforcement academies. We recruit from their graduates. A number of them are what are called unaffiliates. They're not sponsored by national parks, so they're looking for work. So we get some applicants from there. We actively solicit from local community colleges. We have a lot of really good connections. We sponsor interns. We advertise with all the professional organizations, particularly on the west coast of the United States. So I think one of the hardest things we have to deal with is just the cost of living here. We try to bring people in who are not from the Bay Area. Our salary looks great, until you find out what you can buy with it in California. So yeah, so we, I think we've done really well in the diversity of our applicants and our hires. It's just moving up into the quantity, and I'm not really sure. I know that it's not an uncommon issue across California. We're a great place to live, and we're an expensive place to live and work.
Yeah, and council member, this is Neil Rufino, Assistant Director. I do also want to point out that the past few years we have implemented with the unions the $3,000 hiring incentive for rangers, as well as $3,000-ish referral bonus for existing staff. So we're really looking to try to do everything. I think Avi mentioned this new effort that we want to work with HR closely on, and to trying to develop a very direct pipeline into the ranger service. I think would be a great way for us to recruit locally, directly for young students right out of high school, getting into some programming and getting them into some college credit so that they can become rangers for us.
Right, that makes sense. And those efforts all sound good. I think certainly creating local pipelines is, I think, I would imagine everybody's preference. I guess I was just thinking, when we have long delays and we seem stuck, I was just curious if we'd considered contracting the services of external recruiters to maybe open up new pipelines or tap into new networks that we may not be aware of.
Yeah, in general, we work pretty close with HR in terms of managing that. I mean, most of the time when we use recruiters, we have gone for management type positions, but we've, throughout COVID, we also did some work from other projects where we use temp agencies, to hire staff that came in under COVID. And I know there's a few of them who actually have done really well with us and have become, like city analysts. So there are those opportunities, and we just have to keep on working, I think with our department and with HR on, making sure we have different pathways to accelerate, hiring.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I just have a question. Sometime back when we realized, as it relates to the police force that we have, we realized that we were training a lot of officers that were going off to different jurisdictions. I remember there were discussions, mainly in closed session, but there were discussions about clawback provisions as it relates to some of the money spent to train them, put them through the academy and such. Has that ever been considered as it relates to park rangers and the investment that we do up front?
Councilmember, thank you for the question. I'll say it's something that we've had in conversation about internally. Our preference would certainly just be to be the program and employer of choice through our culture, through the experiences that people gain, through the diversity of our work experiences. I'd much rather have somebody who feels that they want to be here because the job is great than they are locked in because of something that will pain them down the road.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that's a well-placed sort of comment, and I agree with it. I just, I guess this isn't the time or place to delve into the costs associated with that. But anyway, I know it was something that I heard from residents loud and clear as it relates to some of the officers, and I think we did implement some of that, and I think it was well received. I'm not sure how well it worked or what the impact was, but anyway, I thought it was important to mention, and just. But I'm glad you've thought about that. Okay, any other comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I'll go to, actually, so this is no more public comment. So do we have a motion to accept the report?
Motion to approve.
Second. Okay, wonderful. We have a motion and a second. Let's vote.
Arenas?
Yes.
Jones?
Aye.
Mayhem?
Aye.
Jimenez?
Aye.
Perales? Thank you.
All right, so we'll move into the last part of the agenda, the open forum, and I think we do have some public, some speakers that want to share a few words. We'll go to the caller ending in 5140. Go ahead, sir.
Hey, you guys cut me off last time. There's no way that was 2 minutes. So as far as I'm concerned, you owe me 4 on this one. Okay? Look, this park police thing is a big fallacy. All right? Not only do these guys don't know how to read and write, they're a little handsy with the fingers, if you know what I mean. Now, I don't know if you guys are recruiting from the TSA or, maybe some federal prison system, but I don't need the hands down the pants or my testicles being fondled by your park police for a misdemeanor arrest. Okay. Now, at least the TSA has been trained to do the back of the hand over your genital area versus a nut grab. Okay. So this is what the kind of people you hire, right? You guys must get the bottom of the barrel of who you hire, because this guy who I had an interaction with was a maniac. And I'm going to tell you, you better put a monkey cam on that guy, because what I saw him do to me and what I saw him do to 2 African-American families was criminal. If he was to do that after George Floyd, can you imagine the kind of publicity you guys would get? It would be in negative numbers. Okay. So, I want you to ask this guy, you know who he is. You know who he is. I want you to ask him if he would have done the same thing in April actually a week after the George Floyd incident, if he would have done what he did in April of 2020. Okay. I want you to ask him that. Would he do that? Would he have the nerve to do that now? No, he'd be minding his P's and Q's, because what that guy did, I think he's related to Chauvin. He looked like him, actually. And he was park police. And guess who's park police? Derek Chauvin. See a coincidence there? You see a coincidence? Let me tell you, this guy is.
Hi, yes. You hear me? You hear me? Oh, let me see. Do you hear me?
Yes, Tessa, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Thank you, sweetie. Yeah, well, in regards to Michael 5140, then we should definitely have cameras on this thing to solve that problem. So on our park police. And so that's my answer to that issue. But my answer to the other issues in regards to our resiliency core, and appreciate Sylvia Arenas and her outreach about kiddos, children. Thank you so much. And even though theoretically that program of resiliency is adults, they're supposedly, that's when Mayor Liccardo set it up, is a post-high school program for employment. But basically they're still young adults, that's for sure. And just wondering what we're doing with that program in regards to really building our resiliency. And I think that we really need to have them be part of the issues of sustainability, which means something that can go on forever, and that we need to start growing food locally here, and having them engaged with becoming patrons of husbandry and really understanding our nature and the issues of that. And then really in terms of how our city is really putting money where our mouth is about sustainability, we need to have lands taken to, even under, whatever it is, to buy lands to start growing food. And that's what we have to start doing, is doing that as we go forward. And that is it's a concurrency of voices from all the people that talk about resiliency, is that we need local food production, and that's the start. And also it's about, nature deficit disorder and job creation. This is the new fossil.
Thank you, Tessa. Take us home.
Chair, I apologize. This is Councilmember Perales. I was having issues. If you could just mark me as a yes vote on the last item. Thanks.
Thank you. You got that. All right, Blair, take us home.
Thank you. It's nice to see Councilperson Perales is able to return. Thank you for the meeting today. My words that were cut off right at the end, I hope we can offer a light touch for not only the Columbus Park issues, but how to address park ranger issues as well. A few other concerns at this time. There's open public policy ideas, there's privacy policy ideas. They can be a bit separate, but they work towards the same good cause. Just a reminder of these good things in ALPR data collection ideas and needs we'll be going through that was listed on an item today. A thought also to work on better practices, how to speak at agenda time. I could have mentioned the idea of renewable energy practices and its local procurement that's possible at this time, to consider good subsidy practices with San Jose Community Energy, and that's accessible to all parts of the community. I hope that's an important cause I should have mentioned in my consent calendar public comment today. Sorry about that. To conclude, it brings up the idea of talking about these issues of large natural disaster and earthquake. I'm really sorry that I don't necessarily so much. And I mean, I'm sorry that I do so much, actually, basically. And I wish there was ways that hopefully I can write letters to yourselves this weekend, and we can maybe talk about this issue so I can create a more public comment space, a better public comment space. I want to be responsible. I don't want to take political sides in talking about this. I want to talk about it in terms of emergency services help. And, I don't want to do it in terms of disaster practices, which I think your city is also trying to do. Good practices, safe practices. So I hope we can talk about this and consider mask use this fall. It's an important concept. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's all our speakers. That brings us to the end of the meeting. We're going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating. Appreciate it. Have a nice weekend. I know it's Thursday, by the way, but have a nice weekend, everyone. Thank you.